Chapter 13. Chapter 13. Kaboom! The loud blow exploded as pressure released, ripping the air apart. Startled, Li Lingtian withdrew 5 yards backward before he stopped. However, the person in front of Yang Tianchen swiftly moved back too and forcefully stopped at a similar distance to Li Lingtian. The scene left everyone dumbstruck. The disciples who were stunned by Li Lingtian's flaming divine fist finally returned to their senses and were excited to see the duo in the life or death canyon. This was going to be a never-before-seen epic battle. The fights between warriors that they had witnessed before were just a play of fools. This time, not only did a Tier 5 warrior defeat a Tier 9 warrior genius, but now, a powerful warrior had made an appearance. Great, great! A young man in his 20s appeared alongside Yang Tianchen. Dressed in blue, he had a relaxed demeanor as he gazed at Li Lingtian with a surprised look on his face. He was the same person who had helped Yang Tianchen overcome the fist. Yang Xiaotian, it's you. Li Lingtian was shocked to see this young man. It was no wonder his fist could be fended off without a hitch. It was Yang Xiaotian. Of course, he recognized Yang Xiaotian. He was a genius disciple in the inner sect and ranked 8th there, the inner sect's 8th place outranked to the outer sect's top 10. Any disciple in the inner sect could easily defeat the top 10 disciples in the outer sect, and this was the difference between these two sections. A Tier 3 warrior spirit was omnipotent. Coming to blows with such a person, he had no guarantee that he could win even if he had mastered the fire dragon's hearts. He had personally witnessed the strength of a warrior spirit just a few days ago. Li Lingtian, you sure put up a front. Who would have thought that you'll make it up to Tier 5 warrior? Still, you're nothing before me. Yang Xiaotian kicked Yang Tianchen away from the life or death canyon's boundary line before he stared at Li Lingtian with a straight face. For Li Lingtian to achieve Tier 5 at the age of 14. Even Yang Xiaotian did not have such accomplishment at that age. Moreover, this Li Lingtian seemed to have acquired quite an ability. Yang Xiaotian's earlier strike, although pressed for time, had used up only 1/3 of his energy. Yet 1/3 of his energy was more than enough to take out a Tier 5 warrior. Not only did Li Lingtian resist it, but they both came to a draw. Regardless, the force of a warrior spirit was a force to be reckoned with. Of course, he did not know that Li Lingtian was holding his strength back. Li Lingtian merely wanted to cripple Yang Tianchen with that earlier strike. After all, Yang Tianchen may not be the legal firstborn son, but he still held high standing in the family. It's senior brother Yang Xiaotian. It's the inner sect's 8th place genius. I heard that he obtained an Onyx tier skill after reaching Tier 3 warrior spirit. Even a 5th placed master may not be his match. Li Lingtian's done for. What a pity. If he did not get on senior brother Yang's nerves, Li Lingtian's bound to be a rare talent. The disciples were bustling with excitement over Yang Xiaotian's presence. It was as if they had seen their idol. Besides, many young women were gushing over him. The Yang family's all the same as if you'll die if you don't toot your horn. Li Lingtian kept a smile on his face while he went through multiple scenarios in his mind. This Yang Xiaotian had a high cultivation level that even Yang Chongxiao from a few days ago could not be held in the same regard. No one would be bothered if he was killed in the life or death canyon. However, he would drag this Yang Xiaotian down with him if he had to. Take one hit from me and I'll spare your life if you survive. I don't want to be called a bully. Yang Xiaotian glanced at Li Lingtian with disdain. He did not want to ruin his reputation in front of all these disciples. Since his single move was enough to cripple Li Lingtian, no one would say he bullied the weak then. His haughty head lifted to take a glance around, and within his sight was faces of adoration and envy. He was on cloud 9 to meet this situation. Meanwhile, in a cave that was a distance from the life or death canyon, a pair of sharp eyes were fixated in the canyon. There was a hint of surprise and curiosity buried in these eyes. Old Zhong, is that the disciple you're happy with? An elder with a beard and head full of red mane teased Zhong Tian upon noticing his gaze. Xiao Feng, you're the one interested in that disciple. Everyone knows that you cultivate the sky smothering technique. That disciple may not have a high cultivation level, but he has the ability to control flaming divine fist to summit, Zhong Tian coldly blurted. Outsiders may not know, but these two elders were warrior kings with incredible cultivation levels. There aren't many disciples in Sky Cloud sect that amount to anything, but these 2 years have brought about plenty of genius disciples. The heavens must be taking pity on Sky Cloud sect. The two elders conversed indifferently while they fixed their gazes in the life or death canyon, taking in the view below. The disciples who gathered on the canyon were impressed by Yang Xiaotian's words. After all, Yang Xiaotian was the embodiment of ability and great breadth of mind. Is everyone in the Yang family shameless like you? A Tier 3 warrior spirit against a Tier 5 warrior like me? I admire your shamelessness. You take one hit of mine and if you're not dead, I'll kill you in the grand tournament. Though Li Lingtian looked calm, he felt embarrassed for Yang Xiaotian. How could a person be so brazen to act magnanimously in front of disciples? Whoa! The audience burst into an uproar at Li Lingtian's words that snapped back at Yang Xiaotian. It may be a little far-fetched for a Tier 5 warrior to go against a Tier 3 warrior spirit. The disciples were dumbstruck. Was today the end of the world or did it just turn mad? Fine, great. Yang Xiaotian flew off the handle. Who gave Li Lingtian the right to challenge and provoke him in front of everyone? As the vigor in his body surged quickly, the might of a warrior spirit suddenly clouded over 200 yards, even disciples afar were overwhelmed with suppression. With that, they immediately retreated further away. Li Lingtian, who bore the brunt, took the same course of action, but instead, his whole body felt as if he was swept into a furious storm and in danger of drowning within himself. Humph! The repression of a warrior spirit was indeed strong. He coldly snorted before he circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation. At the stomp of his foot, the vigor around Li Lingtian rose steeply. The emergence of vigor swiftly kept the repression in check. It was a temporary relief from the crushing repression. The strong had the upper hand over the weak by crushing them with repression. As both repression and cultivation level went hand in hand, it could not be faked. Swoosh swoosh. The repression and vigor tore the air apart. As Yang Xiaotian's powerful repression crumbled over Li Lingtian, he gave an unbridled smile as though he could already see Li Lingtian begging before him. However, Li Lingtian's vigor withstood against his repression. Although it was not completely blocked, a vacuum was formed within 4 yards of the repression, disallowing any energy from moving forth. Astounding sword technique, bright moon in soft breeze, break it. Li Lingtian may be smiling, but he bit his tongue on the hardships he was suffering within. The repression of a warrior spirit could not be easily fended off by a warrior, and this was the competitive edge of the strong over the weak. With the true qi in his body quickly exhausting, if Li Lingtian did not make a move soon, he would be crushed to death by the repression the moment his true qi ran out. Pushing his true qi to the limit, he waved his arm to draw his long sword. Ka-cha! At the flicker of a silvery moon glow, a crackle echoed in the air. The powerful repression split the strange blade glare in half, and like the melting of snow under the spring sun, it soon dissipated. Li Lingtian no longer had a sword in his hand because the long sword had been retrieved back into the scabbard in his left hand. The speed was so horrifyingly quick. Tzich. Meanwhile, with a grimacing look on his face, Yang Xiaotian looked down at his chest. A tiny cut was presented upon his chest with a tear on his apparel. He was an inch away from death. Golden palm ablaze, go to hell. Yang Xiaotian was both alarmed and outraged to find his repression destroyed by a warrior, and it had almost cost him his life. Unable to tolerate it further, he circulated his true qi to the fullest and swung his arms repeatedly. As fierce forces were fired in all directions, Yang Xiaotian's palms formed a faint golden glow that was immediately smashed onto Li Lingtian. D****. Li Lingtian was appalled by the incoming golden palms. The earlier bright moon in soft breeze had exhausted his true qi completely, which consequently disabled him from pulling a flaming divine fist unless he forcefully chanced an ice vitality divine fist. Chapter 14. Chapter 14. In the blink of an eye, a huge golden palm smashed down on Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian took a stand that since Yang Xiaotian was out to kill him, he had to pay the price with his life. Just as he was about to launch the Ice Vitality Divine Fist, a wave of destructive repression descended upon the atmosphere. This repression was a lot more robust than Yang Xiaotian's, and the difference was definitely worlds apart. The descent of the repression imprisoned every disciple in the life or death canyon, disabling them from any motion. Meanwhile, the golden palm was stuck in the air, unable to move an inch as if time had frozen. Everyone held their breath in. "Are you trying to revolt?" A deafening sonorous voice rang in everyone's eardrums, and it was extremely painful. Suspended in the air, an elder coldly stared into the canyon. His red mane reminded Li Lingtian of a golden-maned lion king in his past life. Psttch. Both Li Lingtian and Yang Xiaotian spat blood at the same time. With pale faces, Yang Xiaotian collapsed on the ground while Li Lingtian stumbled backward by a couple of yards before falling on his bottom. Shweta and the rest were pressed onto the ground and their movements were restricted. "Do you have that much time on your hands? All of you, face the wall and reflect for a month." The red-haired elder shouted before he dispersed his repression. Immediately, the onlooking disciples outside the life or death canyon scattered as fast as their legs could carry them. Any slower and they would be made to face the wall in reflection for a month. It would be more suffering than death itself. "You're still here." The red-haired elder raised his voice at Yang Xiaotian, Li Lingtian and the lot. His thundering voice shook the earth. "Don't ever let me see you or it'll be doomsday." As Yang Xiaotian stared coldly at Li Lingtian, he wiped the blood trail on the corner of his mouth. He was frustrated. If it were not for the elder above who caught them at the most crucial moment, Li Lingtian would have been crippled. "I'll say the same to you. Don't ever let me see you and stay away from me in the grand tournament." Li Lingtian coldly snorted before he looked at the red-haired elder in the sky with gratitude. Had it not for the arrival of this red-haired elder, he would have unleashed Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The Ice Vitality Divine Fist might be powerful, but he would end up wounded in pain by hurting his meridians. Casting a scornful side glance to Yang Xiaotian and Yang Tianchen, Li Lingtian then led Shweta, Chen and Shengwan linger out the life or death canyon. Soon, Li Lingtian's group left the life or death canyon. Although Shweta and the other two had suffered the crushing repression, the red-haired elder acted with a sense of propriety and did not cause them any harm. Shengwan Linger had long recovered. She did not expect that Li Lingtian would kill Lan Binhui and the rest for her sake, even offending Yang Xiaotian in the process. "Senior brother Li, thank you," Shengwan Linger bashfully said with a blushing face as she trod towards Li Lingtian for a salute. "It's best to stay indoors to avoid Yang Tianchen and the rest. I'll be leaving now. It's only a month of reflection." Li Lingtian smiled. Shengwan Linger would not be picked by Lan Hai if it were not for him. Through this event, he had come to an understanding that he needed to be more powerful. Since a warrior spirit was enough to put him in a difficult position, it would be the end of him if he encountered an even stronger opponent. With this, his desire for strength grew stronger. An Ice Vitality warrior soul and flaming sacred body alone were not enough, he had to raise his cultivation level. Wall-facing cliff. This was the punishment of Sky Cloud sect disciples who had committed faults that were not a cause for banishment or crippling of cultivation level. It was a place where disciples with potential came to reflect by facing the wall. In other words, it provided a chance to disciples with potential. Although the place was rich with spiritual chi, it was a solitary one. Every disciple who was in reflection was on their own. Arriving at the wall-facing cliff, Li Lingtian entered a room. With his legs crossed, he sat facing a stone wall and closed his eyes in cultivation. However, this was only for a month. As time went on day by day, the excitement was written all over Li Lingtian's face. During this period, he focused on cultivation. The frequent use of vitality pills throughout his cultivation had brought him to tier 6. However, the usual vitality pill would not have such an effect. Putting aside his advancement in cultivation level, the leading cause of his excitement was the apprehension of the mysterious jade slip. Pill art. Ancient pill art, it's the ancient pill art. I can't believe my luck. Li Lingtian gazed at the jade slip in his hands. This jade slip was obtained from killing Zhou Yun, a Windpath warrior soul, when he was hunted in the woods. For a long period of time, he did not recognize that this jade slip was, in fact, a pill art. It had never crossed his mind that, with the support of a powerful soul over his divine mindfulness, having a calm mind would turn on this jade slip. It was a joke because, unlike him, Zhou Yun did not realize this ancient pill art and thought that it was trash instead. Was it a joke? It's no wonder. This jade slip can't be opened by a tier 6 or 7 disciple. If it weren't for my powerful soul and divine mindfulness, this jade slip would not have been activated. On second thought, he came to the conclusion that Zhou Yun, who was killed in a single move, was only a tier 7 warrior, and that was why he could not activate the jade slip. Pill art was an apothecary's bible of various pill refining techniques and miraculous refinery methods. Divine Martial Continent was rich with resources, yet it was short in pill refining skills. A great genius would never part from pills. No matter how skillful a genius was, there was a need for pill supplements. Pills were required in breaking through a bottleneck, treatment of wounds, as well as the growth of cultivation level. An apothecary ranked high in this world. It was also the most magical profession in the Divine Martial Continent, surpassing even a blacksmith. Warriors could only look up to them, and unless necessary, a warrior would not offend an apothecary. A warrior spirit and warrior king would not stir trouble with a regular apothecary, let alone a powerful one. However, there were only a handful of superior apothecaries in this world, as a slight advancement was easier said than done. Apothecaries were divided into 9 tiers. Tier 1 to 2 apothecaries refined grade 1 to 2 pills, while tier 3 to 4 apothecaries were called grade apothecaries, and they refined grade 3 to 4 pills. Tier 5 to 6 spiritual apothecaries refined grade 5 to 6 pills, whereas tier 7 and 8 apothecaries are called sacred apothecaries. A sacred apothecary was capable of refining grade 7 and 8 pills. A tier 9 divine apothecary could refine pills that were miracle cures. There was an even stronger existence called Apothecary Master, but this was only in the legends. The strongest in Sky Dragon Empire was a tier 5 spiritual apothecary, while the rest were merely apothecaries of the 2 primary tiers, making the majority grade apothecaries. Even a warrior king and ascendant dare do not step on a great apothecary's toes. This was the standing of an apothecary, a supreme standing. I was concerned that I didn't have any pills, but with this pill art, I don't have to worry about having no pills. Other apothecary warriors may be concerned about grasping the techniques, but this was not a problem for Li Lingtian. After all, he was a man of wisdom from the 21st century. Although I don't know how powerful this pill art is, the technique in it doesn't seem to be of this world. I should take my time to grasp it in the next 5 days. Li Lingtian instilled his divine mindfulness into the jade slip to receive the information. The information entered his mind, and after the message sending was complete, the jade slip turned into ashes. OB****, the lowest is a grade 3 pill. Just my luck, I suppose. Li Lingtian cursed after he had gone through the information in the pill art for a while. Profound with techniques ranging in thousands, the varying magical techniques were harder to fathom than sword techniques. His omnipotent divine mindfulness and wisdom got him through the first half of the information. The first pill was a grade 3, and it was also the lousiest pill in pill art. He would be digging a hole for himself if he refined a grade 3 pill without any foundation in pill refinery. How silly am I? I can first refine low-graded, grade 1 and 2 pills with the techniques and knowledge in this before slowly making my way to refining higher-graded pills. He smacked a palm to his face. He had a blonde moment and forgot the simple solution to it. A month later, Li Lingtian left the wall-facing cliff with a sense of thrill in his eyes. A month of wall-facing had not only boosted his cultivation level by leaps and bounds, but he had racked up a pill art as well. It was indeed a huge gain. Humming a tune along the way, he walked towards the sect's welfare chamber. He had familiarized himself with a few of the techniques in the past few days, but he still had to get a few things before he began to refine pills. To dig a hole in the ground, a hoe would be needed, and likewise, pill refinery too could not be accomplished with bare hands. Instead, a pill tripod and formula were required, as well as various ingredients. There were many disciples who did business alongside Sky Cloud's sect. These disciples specifically operated restaurants, pill shops, and supply shops inside the sect. Anything other cities in Sky Dragon Empire had, Sky Cloud's sect had it too. The welfare chamber may be a place where the sect worked for the well-being of disciples, but there were some private businesses. However, it was still fairer than in other places. If it isn't senior brother Li Lingtian? He came to the welfare chamber and greeted that same warrior he had met before with a smile. Throughout this period, word had spread on Li Lingtian's deeds. A peripheral disciple, a former good-for-nothing, had turned the tables in a month and defeated Yang Tianfeng, a Tier 4 warrior. He then crippled Lan Hai, an outer sect genius, before killing the outer sect's 6th place, Lan Binhui, in the Life or Death Canyon. He had also engaged in battle with Yang Xiaotian, who was an inner sect Tier 3 warrior spirit. He penetrated the warrior spirit's repression in a single move, and although he sustained injuries, it was a slap in the face on Yang Xiaotian's part. In the end, a sect elder was involved. The two were told to reflect as the supposed punishment. All the disciples were clear that it was the sect's way of protecting these two genius disciples. With that being said, Li Lingtian's cultivation level and strength shocked many disciples. Now, no one dared to mess with these low-tiered disciples, as they would not know what would hit them. "Oh, you remember me. Give me a good pill tripod, a grade 1 vitality pill formula, and a grade 2 spirit binding formula." Flashing a carefree smile, Li Lingtian paced towards the counter with an innocent-looking face. With this face, no one would be able to associate him with the weirdo that defeated a Tier 9 genius. "Please wait for a moment, senior brother Li. I might not have some items, but I do have a few grade 1 and 2 formulas." Zhu Zicheng chuckled before he headed in to rummage for the items. These items were not considered a treasure in Sky Cloud's sect, and with barely any apothecaries in the sect, there would naturally be no lack of supplies. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Soon, Zhu Zicheng brought out a bronze pill tripod. It seemed like it was a foot-long pill tripod. "Senior brother Li, this is the best pill tripod around here. It's a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it's not cheap." Chuckling, Zhu Zicheng passed the pill tripod over to Li Lingtian. A regular pill tripod would only cost a few dozen spiritual stones, but this pill tripod was a mediocre spiritual equipment. A spiritual equipment ranked tripod? Taken aback, Li Lingtian took the pill tripod for a closer inspection, and it was indeed a piece of spiritual equipment. Although it was mediocre, the tripod emitted a faint spiritual sense. It was a spiritual equipment in the flesh. This was also his first encounter with a spiritual equipment, as even his blade was a common weapon. Spiritual equipment was not something a peripheral disciple like him could chance upon. Warriors in the divine martial continent not only equipped themselves with skills and pill refinery, they too sought after weapons. After all, a good weapon could increase a warrior's overall combat effectiveness. The help a weapon could do for a warrior was more important than skills. Many skills depended upon powerful weapons to be brought to full play. A warrior without an adequate weapon was technically a warrior without limbs. Even though Li Lingtian's long sword was a common weapon, unleashing bright moon and soft breeze could penetrate a warrior's spirit's repression. If he wielded a long sword that was a piece of spiritual equipment, the bright moon and soft breeze would not only penetrate the repression, but Yang Xiaotian would be killed too. Weapons in divine martial continent were also classified by rank and quality. It ranked from spiritual equipment, onyx equipment, imperial equipment, heavenly equipment, sacred equipment, to divine equipment. Each classification was also determined by the degree of quality, which was mediocre, ordinary, premium, and peerless. Aside from divine and sacred equipment, heavenly and imperial equipment were a rare find in divine martial continent, while onyx equipment was only owned by the highly skilled masters. Yes, this pill tripod is a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it does nothing for offense and defense. It can only be used to refine pills. Zhu Zicheng stared at Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian had made quite a name for himself in the past month. If Li Lingtian dared to offend even the inner sect's Yang Xiaotian, Zhu Zicheng was sure that Li Lingtian would not hold back if he were to step on his toes. How much for these three altogether? Li Lingtian fell deep into thought. Spiritual stones were important for cultivation, but pill refinery was more important and the priority in boosting his cultivation level. Senior brother Li, this pill tripod is 500 spiritual stones, while these two pill formulas are 300 spiritual stones, making it a total of 800 spiritual stones. Zhu Zicheng gave it a thought. He dared not raise the price too high or keep the price too low. If not, he would have to bear the consequences when the higher-ups looked into it. 800 spiritual stones. Li Lingtian's heart thumped. He had used up some of the spiritual stones he had previously exchanged in the library chamber. On top of that, there were 600 spiritual stones left in Lan Binhui's storage sack. He currently only had 600 spiritual stones in his entire residence. He mumbled in his heart, I can't give up the pill tripod, nor can I give up the formulas. I'll be taking these three items. I'll pay the remaining 200 spiritual stones a while later. As IOUs were a norm in his past life, he should try his luck here. This, Zhu Zicheng's mind went blank. He had never come across such a thing. He had profited over the expense of countless Sky Cloud sect disciples who traded here, but it was never the other way around. What are you trying to say? That I can't do that? Li Lingtian fixed his eyes on Zhu Zicheng as though he was questioning the yammering after having forked out 600 spiritual stones. Of course, it can't be done if it's anything one else, but it's no problem if it's senior brother Li. Zhu Zicheng was on tenterhooks. As he did not want to get on Li Lingtian's bad side, he had to give in even if he was taken advantage of. Hence, he agreed to the terms. Li Lingtian stored the pill tripod and formulas in the storage sack before he made his way towards his residence, leaving behind welfare chambers Zhu Zicheng with a helpless look on his face. Although Zhu Zicheng was shortchanged by 200 spiritual stones, he had to remain soft-spoken. A grade 1 vitality pill increases warriors' true chi, cutting down and minimizing the cultivation period. It is the lowest grade pill. Vitality pill requires vitality control grass, white jade flower, purple string fruit, aerial wind grass, narcissus needle, a first-tier level 9 inner vital, and 3 drops of level 9 blood essence, Li Lingtian murmured under his breath as he read the jade slip in his hand. Vitality pill was a grade 1 pill formula that required the most common ingredients, but it was not an easy feat to refine this pill. I'll have to take a trip to the Sky Mountains. After he had grasped the formula and tempered with the pill tripod, all that was left were ingredients and inner vital. These items required spiritual stones, and for spiritual stones, he had to head into Sky Mountains to slaughter demonic beasts. 10,000 Demons Valley. This was Sky Cloud sect's practice field, but it was where inner sect and out sect disciples both tempered themselves. This was because the place was swamped with first-tier level 8 and 9 demonic beasts. Besides, it also included the existence of second-tier demonic beasts that were comparable to the strength of a warrior spirit. Hence, most outer sect disciples stayed away from here. After a few days of cultivation in his room, Li Lingtian left and went straight to 10,000 Demons Valley. These past few days in cultivation had also made him feel like time had flown past. During the time he was in wall-facing cliff, he was constantly in cultivation and grasping pill art that he did not have the time to look into the ice and fire ring. So back in his room, he tempered with the ice and fire ring after apprehending the grade 1 vitality pill. However, he did not know what treasure the ice and fire ring would be classified as after he had tempered with it, because this was his first time coming into contact with a treasure. After all, his pill tripod was only the lowest level of spiritual equipment. Nevertheless, this ice and fire ring was more powerful than the pill tripod. Just by intuition alone, this ring should be at least a peerless spiritual equipment. However, it was indeed a defense-type treasure that could not be used for attacks, as inside resided the mystical defenses of two elements, ice and fire paths. The ice and fire element repelled against one another yet were placed together. This was the interesting bit. Li Lingtian had a fire dragon's heart and an immemorial ice crystal. Similarly, he also had an ice vitality and flaming warrior's soul, and it depended on the heaven and earth reincarnation to balance the energies. The ice and fire ring, on the other hand, was not restrained by anything, yet fire and ice were able to coexist and display a powerful drive. The defense alone could resist against a warrior spirit's single attack in full force. As his cultivation level was still on the low, it was unbelievable for a tier 6 warrior like him to ward off a warrior spirit's full-fledged attack. Li Lingtian's confidence grew with this defense-type treasure in possession. As long as his path remained uncrossed with supreme warriors or demonic beasts, he would not be in any danger. Hold it right there, you piece of trash. Shortly after venturing into 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian heard an arrogant voice calling out to him. Helplessly shaking his head, Li Lingtian walked along without stopping. Even though he did not turn back, his divine mindfulness took in the sight behind. A youth in black who was around his 20s stood erected on a treetop, peering at him with cold eyes. Although this youth carried himself in a carefree manner, Li Lingtian had nothing but disdain for him. From where this warrior stood, he was looking at death, as the higher he stood, the bigger the fall. Swoosh! I told you to hold it right there. Are you deaf? Zhou Yunshao blew a fuse at Li Lingtian's refusal to stop. How dare a good-for-nothing act this way towards him? As a great genius, he had never received the cold shoulder. In a flash, Zhou Yunshao appeared before Li Lingtian. Didn't I King told you to stop? Are you stupid? Li Lingtian responded by sneering at Zhou Yunshao. A measly tier 8 warrior was not worth Li Lingtian's time. He may only be a tier 6 warrior, but he had far greater disposition and goals than the average man. He knew who this man was. Zhou Yunshao was the guy who had chased after Tang Zimeng, but the latter rejected his advances. However, Tang Zimeng was Li Lingtian's fiancé. Are you looking to die? Zhou Yunshao was dumbfounded. This piece of trash may be an eyesore, but he had never once snapped back at him, so Li Lingtian's earlier reaction caught him by surprise. However, that surprise soon turned into rage. Surging a body of vigor, Zhou Yunshao sliced Li Lingtian with the long sword in his hand, slashing a mighty blade glare. If it was a real cut, Li Lingtian would have lost his life. It's not as impressive as it looks. Cling. With a calm look on his face and a smile, Li Lingtian extended his arm and curled his finger into a flick. At a crisp sound, the long sword slid to the side and fell right by Li Lingtian. Come out, haven't you seen enough? After forcing away Zhou Yunshao's long sword with a finger, Li Lingtian dully said without turning back. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. Brother Lingtian, why are you here? Are you here for me? A young lady in purple appeared before Li Lingtian the moment he said his piece. The young girl, who was about 14 or 15 years old, looked about Li Lingtian's age. The two little dimples on that exquisitely flawless face enhanced her overall adorability. Her witty eyes fixated on Li Lingtian as she spoke. She was Tang Zimeng, the granddaughter of the empire's King Kaoshan. Sharing the same birth date, she was the same age as Li Lingtian. The difference between their birth was only by an hour. For this reason, Great General Tang Feilong and Li Zhongyang arranged a betrothal between them. Tang Zimeng and Li Lingtian grew up together, but the duo gradually drifted apart after they began their cultivation journey in Sky Cloud's sect. D***, you must be blind to go after Nangong Mingyue when your fiancé's no less than her. In fact, there's an air of cuteness and elegance to her. After feasting his eyes on Tang Zimeng, Li Lingtian cursed at his former self. I'm thinking of making a trip to the 10,000 Demons Valley. Li Lingtian answered Tang Zimeng while he cursed in his heart. This gorgeous girl was a rare sight to behold, as he was captivated by those dimples in particular. In the beginning, Li Lingtian often came here to look for Tang Zimeng, but the former had become occupied with cultivation in the last 1 to 2 years. As Li Lingtian's cultivation level pulled away from Tang Zimeng's, they both grew distant. Oh. What? You're going to 10,000 Demons Valley? Tang Zimeng expressed acknowledgement but quickly caught on. Surely Li Lingtian was joking when he said he was going to 10,000 Demons Valley. Although she was a Tier 7 warrior, she dared not simply venture into 10,000 Demons Valley by herself. Li Lingtian might be a genius disciple, but he had a late start and was only a peripheral disciple. Without pills and great skills, the cultivation level between them was worlds apart. Moreover, Tang Zimeng had a Tier 9 warrior spirit sister in Sky Cloud sect, which put her on a great advantage and at a different level from Li Lingtian. Humph, you piece of trash, stay away from Zimeng. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? Zhou Yunxiao was displeased to see Tang Zimeng and Li Lingtian engaged in a conversation. He had pursued Tang Zimeng for over a year, yet she had not spoken a word to him. There was no way he could tolerate Tang Zimeng acting close to a good-for-nothing. Ha, Zhou Yunxiao, just let it be. Don't tell me that you wouldn't dare lay hands on a good-for-nothing. All that cultivation fed to a dog. Junior sister Tang Zimeng isn't someone you can bang. Of course, that piece of trash doesn't have the right either. At this time, many disciples who were entering 10,000 Demons Valley burst into laughter after they caught a glimpse of Li Lingtian and the other two. These disciples disapproved of Zhou Yunxiao, but they too thought nothing less of a good-for-nothing like Li Lingtian. Shut up. As fellow disciples insulted Li Lingtian, the sweet smile on Tang Zimeng's face disappeared into a cold, stiffened face. A long sword appeared in her hand. Tang Zimeng was anxious about Li Lingtian's lack in cultivation level. Since this was a world where the fittest survive, so, of course, she hoped for a dauntless powerhouse as her future husband. Nevertheless, she grew up together with brother Lingtian and could not tolerate anyone mocking him. She would rather live an uneventful life than have anyone insulting brother Lingtian. At the thought that she had barely spent time with brother Lingtian in the recent 1 to 2 years due to cultivation, Tang Zimeng felt guilty. Junior sister Zimeng, don't be angry. Why be angry over him? This is a world where only the fittest will survive. Why would you stand for a good-for-nothing? You're definitely a piece of trash, hiding behind a woman. Zhou Yunxiao and the other warriors were stunned. Tang Zimeng may not have a high cultivation level, but she had a Tier 9 warrior spirit sister that they dared not mess with. Moreover, Tang Zimeng was a rare beauty. Coming back to his senses, Zhou Yunxiao immediately explained to Tang Zimeng in a soft tone before he darted a cold look at Li Lingtian. The more Tang Zimeng defended Li Lingtian, the more he was infuriated. Will you catch a shriveling disease if you don't speak? Li Lingtian was taken aback by Tang Zimeng's reaction. Based on his understanding of this world, this was where the law of the jungle applied and relationships meant nothing. However, he was surprised by Tang Zimeng's actions of setting herself against others in order to defend him. After all, relationships took a backseat in the name of money and power in his past life, and this world was no different. Li Lingtian's heart was filled with warmth by Tang Zimeng's behavior. There was no reason for him to turn his back on her as she had his back. As a smile deepened on his face, Li Lingtian gently took a step out and stood before Zhou Yunxiao. His cold eyes looked at Zhou Yunxiao as though he was an idiot. You're looking for death. It did not occur to Zhou Yunxiao that Li Lingtian would challenge him in front of a gorgeous girl. He was enraged to be humiliated and disrespected in front of Tang Zimeng. Swinging his long sword, Zhou Yunxiao launched a fierce blade glare towards Li Lingtian. With only a 5 yards distance between them, the blade was swung in the blink of an eye. Brother Lingtian, be careful. Although Tang Zimeng was surprised, she could not stop him in time. Moreover, her Tier 6 abilities would not be able to save Li Lingtian against Zhou Yunxiao, who was at Tier 8. With a pale face, Tang Zimeng's chest tightened. However, she soon found herself staring at Li Lingtian in shock while the other disciples who remained stared at Li Lingtian in fear as though they had seen a ghost. Li Lingtian single-handedly swung his sword to slice a flickering silver blade glow before he retrieved his right hand. Li Lingtian stood still as though he never moved an inch, but a dull clash was soon heard. Cling. Pftsch. Time froze on a despaired Zhou Yunshao whose long sword was now split in half. Besides that, his cultivation of true qi was quickly leaking from a cut that could be seen through the tear in the abdomen area of his clothes. Ah, you crippled my cultivation level. Ah! My cultivation level. The releasing sensation of his cultivation was clear to Zhou Yunshao that his dantian was crippled. Unable to bear the weight of it, Zhou Yunshao let out a horrifying scream. What a terrifying swing! What speed! That was a vicious blade glare. Is he still the same piece of trash? The warriors who mocked both Li Lingtian and Zhou Yunshao earlier were completely dumbstruck. With overwhelming fear, they hung their heads low, afraid to see eye to eye with Li Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, your cultivation level? In a state of shock, Tang Zimeng's dainty mouth dropped wide open but she cupped one hand over it. She was startled by Brother Lingtian's capabilities. It was long before she returned to her senses to probe into his abilities. Was this the same Brother Lingtian? The former Brother Lingtian may be good to her but he was a little weak and never had such a smooth, clean approach. Moreover, Tang Zimeng was amused at the thought of Li Lingtian's words before. She now saw Li Lingtian in a new light as though she was seeing him for the first time. I just broke through Tier 6 warrior not long ago. Li Lingtian did not keep it a secret. There was no need to conceal the truth since he was only a Tier 6 warrior. His cultivation level would only improve from here anyway. Great, this is great. Sixth grandfather won't oppose to us anymore. Tang Zimeng happily added. The blossoming smile on her face took Li Lingtian's breath away. Your sixth grandfather? Li Lingtian was confused and curious to learn that sixth grandfather had opposed their betrothal. Nothing. Tang Zimeng's alarm bells rang at Li Lingtian's question. Brother Lingtian would definitely blow a fuse if he were to find out. So, she immediately shook her head. Girl, tell me, what is this about? Having lived 2 lifetimes, Li Lingtian knew there was more to this little girl's action. As such, with a serious face, he asked in a soft voice. Sixth grandfather wants to betroth me to Duan Muqing. As there was no point in fooling him, Tang Zimeng told the truth. There were a few outstanding characters in Sky Cloud's sect and some of them were warrior king powerhouses. Duan Muqing was an inner sect disciple and a Tier 6 warrior spirit. As this was a dog-eat-dog world, Tang Zimeng's sixth grandfather naturally wanted Tang Zimeng to marry Duan Muqing. I see, and what are your thoughts? After Li Lingtian had said that, he advanced forward without taking another look at Zhou Yunshao. The law of the jungle principle ran deep within warriors so he could only count on himself in gaining strength. Very quickly, Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley, disappearing from Tang Zimeng's line of vision. By the time Tang Zimeng returned to her senses, Li Lingtian was long gone. Brother Lingtian, you did that intentionally. Tang Zimeng stomped her foot and pouted her luscious lips in an alluring manner at the disappearance of Li Lingtian. Then, she darted off in the opposite direction, leaving behind the crippled Zhou Yunshao and a few terror-stricken warriors. They held their breath in until Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng had left the scene. What a terrifying cultivation level. Is he really a Tier 6 warrior? I'm a Tier 7 warrior but I'm not certain if I can overcome that strike. Is he still the same good-for-nothing we know? It's best we distance ourselves from him before we get ourselves in trouble. It'll be fun to see how this plays out. Duan Muqing isn't one to mess with. The warriors mumbled among themselves before they left 10,000 Demons Valley. It was only right to stay away since Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley. After all, they did not want to risk their lives fronting with Li Lingtian. Back inside 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian came across many Tier 6 and above outer sect as well as inner sect disciples who joined forces in eliminating demonic beasts while searching for medicinal supplies. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Bright moon in soft breeze, die. At the swing of a sword, a silvery blade glow flickered and soon a level 6 armored beast was sliced in half. It was dead. Flaming divine fist, penetrate. A fist-bearing flame was thrown, burning through the air before it smashed onto a first-tier level 8 lightning leopard. The lightning leopard fell onto the ground as its body spread a fragrant aroma. Li Lingtian was a one-hit wonder throughout his journey, even with a level 8 demonic beast. Many tier 6 and 7 warriors were struck with fear at the sight of Li Lingtian's terror. This young man was a more revering existence to them than the demonic beasts. They had originally wanted to seize Li Lingtian's storage sack, but they scrambled far away after witnessing his skills. Instead, these warriors were afraid that they would be robbed by Li Lingtian. This is great. I have finally found a white jade flower, and it was of 20 years' value. He extended his arm to retrieve the white jade flower before he headed deeper in to kill more demonic beasts. He left out the materials and only grabbed the inner vitals because his storage sack had limited storage. Time went on day by day and there were now about 30 level 7 and above inner vitals in his storage sack. There were also some medicinal supplies, and although they were only 10 years of value, they were enough to refine grade 1 pills. This day, Li Lingtian entered the depths of the 10,000 Demons Valley. For the past 3 days, he had continuously come across only level 9 demonic beasts, of which their inner vitals were worth more than inner vitals of other levels. What a powerful demonic chi could this be? At that moment, an omnipotent demonic chi filled the air with the scent of aura that left people trembling. This was the repression of a superior demonic beast towards inferior demonic beasts. Just my luck. Li Lingtian smiled bitterly before he hurried to a nearby stone wall. His swift body movements carried him to the top of an 11 yards tall stone wall in seconds. Then, he glanced at the gigantic demonic beast below. Earth Dragon, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. The grey demonic beast, scaling a height of 5 yards, was an ugly sight to behold, but Li Lingtian had no thoughts on its appearance. Regardless of its looks, it was still a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. It had the strength comparable to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Demonic beasts naturally had great defense and were capable of vicious attacks. They were much stronger than human warriors, and it was more so for a second-tier earth dragon that was akin to the earth element, granting it amazing defense and powerful attacks. Foe. Spotting Li Lingtian, the earth dragon's bloodshot eyes, which was the size of a knuckle, beamed at its delicious meal. It swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. Come bite me. How can this be? Li Lingtian let out a brash smile at the earth dragon that was jumping towards him. It was impossible for the earth dragon to leap over the 11 yards tall stone wall. However, his face turned grave soon after he made a "come bite me" gesture at the earth dragon. The earth dragon was clawing his way up the stone wall with its sharp nails, swooping towards Li Lingtian on the double. Swoosh! Swoosh! Li Lingtian's mind went blank. He had never believed the saying that pigs could fly, but neither did he believe that earth dragons could climb on stone walls. This went beyond all of his beliefs, and it was more absurd than pigs flying. Moving with the breeze technique, he continuously dodged the grey earth dragon that was hot behind his tail. It was a race between a human and a beast. Flaming divine fist. Wham! What skin is this? It's so tough. He sought an opportunity to smash his flaming divine fist in. Following a dull noise, he was surprised to find that the earth dragon was not burned to a crisp as he had imagined. Instead, his palm had absorbed the pain. Bright moon in soft breeze, slice. By borrowing strength from gravity, Li Lingtian leaped up the stone wall and repelled the force as he slashed his long sword downwards. A silvery blade glare flickered through the air. Swoosh! Roar! The vicious blade glow sliced the earth dragon's claws off, and the earth shook at the howl of the earth dragon. After all, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast was equivalent to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Astounding sword techniques, vast obscure extermination. As the true qi in his body lessened, Li Lingtian knew that he would be ambushed by other warriors if he attempted an escape. So, without further delay, he circulated his true qi to forcefully unleash the astounding sword technique's second form. Immediately, a strange, vast obscure aura that carried a massive sense of destruction tore the air within a 55-yard radius. Detecting the destructive aura, the Earth Dragon's eyes reeked of fear. It let out a howl before it swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. At that moment, Li Lingtian peacefully yet expressionlessly waved his arm, drawing a line with his sword as several blade shreds burst out. Tzh 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 tzh. Roar, roar. Kaboom. While sizzling crackles echoed in the air, the rarely petrified Earth Dragon was slammed onto a stone wall by a powerful force. As the intensity wore down, Li Lingtian had long retrieved his sword, or perhaps he never did draw his sword because the velocity was faster than the naked eye. Vast obscure extermination, I've finally managed to unleash it. Li Lingtian stared at the Earth Dragon's carcass with a satisfied smile. He had finally succeeded in launching the vast obscure extermination. The second form of astounding sword technique was indeed powerful in its own right. If an Earth Dragon could be killed in a single hit, there was no stopping him against warriors or even warrior spirits. With this move, his abilities were raised to a whole new level and warriors of any tiers would no longer pose a threat to him unless, of course, he encountered an out-of-this-world powerhouse. After adjusting his mindset, he glided down to collect the valuable materials and inner vital on the Earth Dragon. A second-tier level 4 demonic beast was a great find, more so an Earth Dragon with high defense. The skin of an Earth Dragon especially was worth a lot of money. My state came loose. The moment Li Lingtian was about to leave after he had bagged the Earth Dragon's materials, he stopped short with a baffled look on his face. The earlier battle with the Earth Dragon where he had unleashed the vast obscure extermination had loosened up his Tier 6 warrior state. Swoosh! Transforming his body into a breeze, he swiftly left the battlefield. The activity that went on earlier would attract people to draw near. Tier 6 warrior, breakthrough. Go! Half an hour later, Li Lingtian arrived at a cave in the valley with sweat dripping down his face. With a smile, he let out a gentle cry, releasing his body of true qi to push through to Tier 7. The powerful true qi channeled through and brought him to Tier 7 warrior. He had succeeded in advancing to Tier 7. Feeling the powerful true qi in his body, Li Lingtian observed the stark difference between a Tier 6 and Tier 7 warrior. Just the amount of true qi alone was 2 times more than a Tier 6 warrior. Not only that, but the upgraded state also saw a boost in the quality of his true qi. Flaming Divine Fist. Wham! He demonstrated his Flaming Divine Fist. With eagerness over the violent energy, he smashed his flaming fist to a stone wall afar. Following a loud bang, a huge black hole was cracked onto the stone wall. The speed seemed to have picked up a lot. The speed of the Flaming Divine Fist in Tier 7 had almost doubled compared to when he first started, even the velocity on the circulation of true qi had increased. This meant that his skill could be launched instantaneously without the true qi circulation delaying the time. At the completion of his cultivation, Li Lingtian cautiously unleashed the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. Although it proved a great force, it exhausted far too much true qi. A strike of his fist turned a 12-acre cave into a glacier. Bright moon in soft breeze. Vast obscure extermination. Flaming Divine Fist. Ice and fire ring. Most of Li Lingtian's true qi had been exhausted by the time he had tried all of his skills. Luckily for him, he had reached Tier 7 or else a single Flaming Divine Fist would have used up almost all of his true qi. After taking all his skills for a spin, he now had half his true qi left. The intensity of his true qi was better than before. I've collected the few ingredients in full, so all that's left is to kill a level 9 demonic beast and collect its blood essence. Li Lingtian took a look inside his storage sack. He had all of the supplies needed to refine a grade 1 vitality pill. There were 7 ingredients altogether and only a bit of blood essence was needed before he could leave 10,000 Demons Valley. Hence, he left the cave and moved forth in search of first-tier demonic beasts. He was not going to refine a pill with a second-tier demonic beast's blood essence as he wanted to avoid wasting precious ingredients. Gruum. Gruum. Rumbling sounds that came from the depths of 10,000 Demons Valley echoed through heaven and earth. Startled, Li Lingtian moved in a flash. The increase of his cultivation level and ability had enhanced a sense of security in him amongst other warriors. After all, great talent had been added to his bold nature. 10 minutes later, Li Lingtian's face turned grave as he peeked inside the valley. He saw 5 youths encircling and attacking a huge demonic beast. Warrior spirit powerhouses. Hiss, they're all warrior spirits and one of them is a tier 5 warrior spirit. Li Lingtian gasped silently at the scene. All 5 warriors were warrior spirits. The lowest was a tier 2 warrior spirit while the best among them was a tier 5 warrior spirit. The besieged demonic beast was a 20-foot tall green-eyed beast. It was a second-tier level 7 demonic beast. Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, you two restrain it. I'll kill it. Zhou Tianjun saw no progression in the 5 of them laying siege on this demonic beast. In fact, this level 7 demonic beast had gotten the better of them. If this went on, they would definitely be killed by this beast. Senior brother Zhou, I'll help you. Ling Feng, you go restrain the green-eyed beast as well. Wang Hao and Zhou Tianjun exchanged glances before they hastened the speed of their hands. After they gave in their all, they immediately pulled back in preparation to launch a powerful attack against the green-eyed beast. Hurricane Fist. Earthly Chill. 10,000 vines bind, confine it. Without giving Zhou Tianjun and Wang Hao's words another thought, the situation was clear enough for Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, and Ling Feng to circulate their whole body of true qi to unleash their biggest attack without holding back. Roar! At a loud howl, the green-eyed beast pressed its huge claws forward encountering the 3 warrior spirits' attacks. The clash caused the forces to spread in the air. Meanwhile, the restrained green-eyed beast had momentarily lost control over its limbs. Sky-perishing spear. Kailan sword. Seizing the perfect timing, Zhou Tianjun swung his arm before a silver spear emerged. The spear emitted a heavy cloud of spiritual qi while amassing domineering energy. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. A spiritual equipment, an ordinary spiritual equipment. Zhang Wei and the rest of the group were surprised to see the spear in Zhou Tianjun's hand. It was an ordinary spiritual equipment. An ordinary spiritual equipment was barely attainable by a warrior spirit, yet Zhou Tianjun possessed one in his hand. Li Lingtian too was astonished as it was his first time seeing an ordinary spiritual equipment. It was capable of driving a mighty force in which warriors would usually find difficulty in withstanding. The drive of a spiritual equipment could penetrate through any warrior's defense. Compared to Zhou Tianjun's ordinary spiritual equipment, Wang Hao's Kailan sword was nothing. It was only a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it was still a decent weapon. 2 powerful attacks were launched onto the green-eyed beast. As if it had sensed the threat that was coming its way, the eyes of the green-eyed beast were filled with ferociousness before a strange demonic qi exploded. Roar! Letting out a wail, the green-eyed beast spat out a white bead that harbored a gruesome demonic energy that was swiftly rammed towards Zhou Tianjun. Life Bond Inner Vital Attack. The 5 were terrified at the appearance of the white bead, especially for Zhou Tianjun, whose face turned into despair. To begin with, a demonic beast was much stronger than a human, so the Life Bond Inner Vital Attack of a second-tier level 7 demonic beast was definitely devastating. Guruum. Ah, ah, ah. The entire valley shook at the sound of a loud crash. With a glow of destruction, the white inner vital clashed violently onto Zhou Tianjun and turned him into ashes in a blink of an eye. Meanwhile, the other 4 warrior spirits were thrown back by the impact. On the other hand, the ordinary spiritual equipment struck the green-eyed beast. With an 11-foot-tall spear penetrating through its head, the green-eyed beast breathed its last breath. The residue impact swept across the valley, turning the trees and flowers into ashes. The 4 warrior spirits fell onto the ground, but not before they spat out a mouthful of blood. Swoosh! A sudden sound broke through the sky and interrupted the peace in the valley as a white figure fluttered through the air. Bright moon in soft breeze, kill. Flaming divine fist, explode. Vast obscure extermination, die. At a flicker of the blade glare followed by a flaming fist, exterminating blade shreds burst out altogether in the blink of an eye and crashed onto 3 of the warrior spirits. Ah! Following the sound of screams, the 3 warrior spirits perished. You're despicable. Ling Feng was without an ounce of true qi in his body. The residue impact from the green-eyed beast's inner vital may not be fatal, but it had wiped out all of his true qi and he was now left with none. All he saw was a young warrior who had become a hunter and was here to steal their thunder after all the hard work they had put in. Humph, there's no such thing as despicable in this world, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. Killing for treasure was the norm in a dog-eat-dog world. Moreover, he merely waited for an opportunity to strike. It was not his problem to deal with if they were unaware of other dangers approaching them while they were engaged in battle. Flaming divine fist, die. After that, Li Lingtian pushed forth a flaming divine fist, prompting a violent stir in the air. A Tier 3 warrior spirit, despite without true qi, should not be underestimated. Wham! Although the flaming divine fist crashed down in a loud bang, Li Lingtian found himself with a hardened expression. His flaming divine fist came to nothing as it crashed onto the ground, but at this point, Ling Feng had disappeared out of sight. Hehe, I knew of your existence. You're just a warrior, nothing less than an ant before me. Kailan's sword, eliminate. Ling Feng stood erected on the valley's stone wall, showing no signs of injury. With a body of true qi in its prime, he drew the Kailan sword and sliced a white light through the sky. Ah, a miscalculation. Instant true qi recovery, not bad. Ice vitality divine fist, freeze him. Surprised, Li Lingtian smiled bitterly from within. Who would have thought Ling Feng had a treasure that was capable of regaining his true qi in an instant? Seeing a Tier 3 warrior spirit's blow in full force, Li Lingtian realized that he could not afford to be careless. A Tier 7 warrior like him was nothing against a Tier 3 warrior spirit who had possession of a mediocre spiritual equipment. With firm resolute, Li Lingtian spun the immemorial ice crystal in him and circulated the ice vitality divine fist to launch his attack. Immediately, the temperature plunged, turning everything, including the air within a 110-yard radius in the valley, into a glacier. The blade glare fired by the Kailan sword too solidified in the static air, slowing its speed down like a crawling ant. Ice Vitality Warrior Soul, it's impossible. You have a Firepath Warrior Soul, how can you have Ice Vitality Warrior Soul as well? It had never crossed Ling Feng's mind that this young man could launch such a powerful attack, that the entire valley had been turned to glacier. Even a warrior spirit with an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul was incapable of achieving this. Since this young man had unleashed Firepath attacks, he must have a Firepath Warrior Soul, yet he had just demonstrated an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul's attack. Ling Feng's mind completely went blank from the shock. Die! Li Lingtian himself too was taken aback by how his Ice Vitality Divine Fist had frozen the vicinity of over 100 yards. For his first time at unleashing the Ice Vitality Divine Fist, it was quite a feat. Meanwhile, he hastened the speed of his Ice Vitality Divine Fist and blasted it at Ling Feng. He was unaffected inside the glacier because he was the creator of this phenomenon. Ah! Ling Feng turned into an ice sculpture and all of his meridians were frozen. With a blow to the ice sculpture, it was smashed to pieces. Consequently, Ling Feng dropped dead to the ground. PFT. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Li Lingtian staggered about. Suddenly, the glacier in the valley disappeared and resumed to the atmosphere as it was before. He had sustained some injuries after releasing a few powerful skills consecutively, which included the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. So it seemed like the Ice Vitality Divine Fist is an Onyx tier skill that can't be controlled by a warrior. The immemorial ice crystal is still too much for me to handle. Li Lingtian thought to himself before he stashed the warrior spirit storage sacks and sorted out the Earth Dragon's materials. In 10 minutes, Li Lingtian had then left the valley and advanced afar. PFTTZH. Sitting in a cave with his legs crossed, Li Lingtian spat out another mouthful of blood. However, his cheeks gradually regained its pink tint. He had overdone it with the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The force might be great, but he did not have total control over it. After smoothing out the bruises, his injuries had stabilized. He then extended his arm to open the storage sacks and took out the properties that belonged to the warrior spirits he had eliminated earlier. These 5 storage sacks were treasures of warrior spirit powerhouses. Li Lingtian made an inventory and found that he had bagged over 2,000 spiritual stones, 1 mediocre spiritual equipment, Kylan sword, and an ordinary spiritual equipment, Sky Perishing Spear. The rest were a few inner vitals, low-grade pills, several skills, and some common weapons. There are some good pills. He looked at the several jade bottles in his hands that contained dozens of pills. These were just enough for him to use. Apart from that, the 2 spiritual equipment were of value to him, such as the mediocre spiritual equipment. Kylan's sword was a great replacement for his long sword. Oh, I see. It's this little thing. There were 3 blue pills in a purple jade bottle. Based on the information from the pill art, he recognized these pills were blue dust pills. These pills were used to regain a warrior spirit's true chi. Li Lingtian recalled the incident where even after he had launched an attack on Ling Feng, the latter had managed to regain his true chi from complete exhaustion. The reason behind his instant true chi recovery was this blue dust pill. Stalactite of 1,000 years value was the main ingredient to refining a blue dust pill. Limited to 1 usage a day, this blue dust pill could regain a warrior spirit's true chi. Warriors too were not restricted from its effects, but it would be ineffective on any powerhouses above the warrior spirit state. So after storing his spoils, Li Lingtian began to cultivate. There were also some pills he had collected from the warrior spirits that were suitable in treating his injuries, and he chewed on them like candy. An hour later, Li Lingtian opened his eyes. His injuries had completely healed while his true chi had reached its prime. Sky Perishing Spear, refine. Li Lingtian took out the Sky Perishing Spear and hurled it to the air while he gestured a few techniques. He was tempering the treasure. 1. Which was basic knowledge to any warrior. With this, the remaining chi on the Sky Perishing Spear was wiped out by Li Lingtian's divine mindfulness. He then shot a drop of blood essence onto the spear, but as the blood touched the spear, the Sky Perishing Spear trembled and put up a fight. TZH 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 TZH. Clang! After a string of noises followed by a loud ring, the Sky Perishing Spear simmered down. Letting out a satisfied smile, Li Lingtian connected his divine mindfulness with the Sky Perishing Spear. Join me and you'll be stronger. An ordinary spiritual equipment was not only unattainable for warrior disciples, but warrior spirits as well. Only a handful of warrior spirits were in possession of a spiritual equipment. Kylan's sword, refine. Li Lingtian repeated the same tempering process in refining the Kylan sword. As the Kylan sword was a mediocre spiritual equipment, it was easier to temper than the Sky Perishing Spear. He had only used the most common weapon while he cultivated the Amber Tier Superior Astounding Sword technique. With this Kylan sword, the force following the sword technique should multiply. Days went by and in a blink of an eye, he had been in the 10,000 Demons Valley for 2 months now. His current cultivation level had reached the Tier 7 Peak Warrior state. Pairing his Tier 7's ability and powerful skills with the Kylan sword and Sky Perishing Spear had enabled him to single-handedly take down even a Tier 2 level 5 or 6 demonic beast. The 6 storage sacks increased and they were almost filled with inner vitals and ingredients. Now, he had more than enough supplies to refine Grade 1 vitality pills and spirit binding pills. Today should be the 7th of June. There are 3 more months until the sect's grand tournament. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian gazed towards the direction of the sect. It was time to return. Lan Binhui's storage sack had a blue fleecing fruit that could advance him a tier further in cultivation. Besides that, he also had 5 spirit binding pills in his possession. For the time being, these pills were sufficient to raise his cultivation level, but it was also time that he began refining pills. Chapter 19. Chapter 19. Sitting in a room in a cross-legged position, Li Lingtian's face was drenched with trails of sweat. It had been a month since his return from 10,000 Demons Valley. In that month, he had continuously cultivated with vitality pills, leading his advance from Tier 7 to Tier 8 warrior state. He swallowed the blue fleecing fruit which enabled the powerful spiritual qi to wreak havoc in his body. This blue fleecing fruit was more potent than vitality pills in many ways. Li Lingtian continuously circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the spiritual qi into true qi before it circled back to his dantian. Tier 9 warrior, breakthrough. He yelled as his body's true qi reached the peak of Tier 8. Under the influence of the heaven and earth reincarnation, his true qi swiftly charged onto Tier 9. Thump. The thud came from within his body and it was so soft, only he could hear it. The moment this sound was heard, his true qi had never been so smooth as it circulated in a hastened flow. I made it. Li Lingtian's smile deepened. Advancing to Tier 9 from Tier 8 was the hardest stage in warrior state. Hence, he had saved the blue fleecing fruit until now. After many vitality pills and a blue fleecing fruit, he finally made it to the highest level, Tier 9 warrior state. In fact, he had used up all the vitality pills he had. The grand tournament, here I come. With his lips curled into a deeper smile, he ventured back into cultivation and began to stabilize his state. It was 8 days later when he finally secured his Tier 9 warrior state. After he had stabilized his state, he then made preparations to refine pills. Pill refinery still remained his main priority. Even the best of geniuses required the aid of pills. Although he was the most curious and fascinated about the blue dust pill, he did not have the formula. Moreover, its main ingredient was a 1,000-year stalactite. The stalactite alone was inaccessible to a warrior like him. 1 white jade flower. 1 vitality control grass. 1 purple string fruit. 1 narcissus needle. 1 aerial wind grass. 3 drops of first tier level 9 demonic beast's blood essence. 1 first tier level 9 inner vital. Li Lingtian began by selecting the ingredients. A good apothecary made careful selections to avoid any imperfections on the ingredients as it had a direct effect on the pill's quality and refinery success rate. Rise. He took out his pill tripod as well as around 10 mediocre spiritual stones. A flame appeared and sparked the spiritual stones to burn a white flame under the pill tripod. White jade flower. Vitality control grass. Purple string fruit. Ingredients. After the ingredients were hurled into the pill tripod. The first ingredient dissolved into liquid before a second ingredient was tossed into the mix. For Li Lingtian's first attempt, his technique may be ingenious but his jarring approach was a telltale sign that he was a newbie. Nevertheless, great apothecaries would have their jaws dropped if they ever feasted their eyes on this rather ingenious technique. Bang! I failed. The refinery was a bust. He had failed in his first attempt in pill refinery. Bang! Fail! Bang! Fail! Li Lingtian was baffled after he was led to 3 consecutive failures when he added in the inner vital. However, Li Lingtian was not worked up by the failed attempts. He knew well that regardless of anything, countless failures would eventually lead to success when it came to pill refinery. Let me try refining the inner vital first. The reason behind each failure was due to the extended time in refining the inner vital while the concoction sat for a long period. By then, the brew had burnt. The inner vital was the hardest to refine and this was also the crucial key to why he missed the boat. With the help of his 21st century wisdom, this was not an issue to him. Formulas were fixed but people were not. The formula came from the experience of others so there was no reason as to why he could not change the rules around it. At that thought, Li Lingtian initiated his divine mindfulness to fork out some spiritual stones. He was going to try his hand at refining again. However, this time was different from the last. He reversed the order by beginning with refining the inner vital first. Swish swish, swish swish. After dissolving into concoction in the pill tripod, the inner vitals started to spread a heavy demonic energy. He then hurled a white jade flower into the mix. Soon, 4 ingredients had been added and it stirred a tremendous change in the pill tripod. Swish. With the ingredients and inner vital melted into liquid, the last step was the demonic beast's blood essence. Pouring 3 drops of the blood essence in, the concoction immediately went into overdrive. Indeed. I knew this issue wasn't going to bring me down. Li Lingtian may have a smile on his face, but he kept his emotions in check. One's mentality was most important to an apothecary. Success. The pill tripod tipped open with a soft blast, giving out a fresh medicinal aroma. After taking a look inside the tripod, Li Lingtian was filled with thrill. Peerless Vitality Pill. D*MN, that's awesome. Li Lingtian's mind went blank for long while at the sight of 13 pure white pills inside the tripod. Although it was his first in pill refinery, the pill art was the most mystical pill refinery treasury in ancient history. The techniques inside were not only extraordinary, but they also had their own unique comprehension and insights on the course of refinery. Yet, he had managed to achieve peerless for this grade 1 vitality pill, considering a peerless vitality pill was out of this world. He soon came to realize that the pills refined with the mystical technique were exceptional because he had used a grade 3 refinery method on a grade 1 pill. In this world, pills were classed as common, superior, or peerless. Pills were normally of the common quality while superior and peerless qualities were unheard of. A superior grade 1 pill was as effective as a substandard grade 2 pill. The effects of a peerless pill, on the other hand, went beyond 2 higher grades due to the absence of impurity in it. The significance of this evolved pill was far above and beyond the imagination of warriors. It had never occurred to him that his first success in pill refinery was of peerless quality. It was an outstanding achievement. Let me try this. Tossing a pill into his mouth, he felt the powerful drug exploding in his body. Although he had never taken a spirit-binding pill, this grade 1 vitality pill was definitely in the same class as the spirit-binding pill. However, regardless of the quality of a grade 1 pill, warriors were capable of digesting it, but the efficacy was definitely more evident than a warrior using a spirit-binding pill. As the strong drug effect began to revolve in his body, Li Lingtian circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the effect into true qi. Half an hour later, the conversion of the vitality pill's drug effect to true qi was complete. The drug effect had pushed his Tier 9 cultivation to its peak, leaving him a step away from perfection. Tier 9 Peak Warrior. The imperial family's royal princess. Li Lingtian let out a faint smile. These were the words of Nangong Mingyue when they came face to face a few months ago. In a period of several months, he too became a Tier 9 Peak Warrior. Even an outer sect elite disciple could not measure up to Li Lingtian's abilities. With 2 spiritual equipment in hand, he could take up a gauntlet against warrior spirits. Let me continue. The true qi in his body flowed at a slow pace after achieving Tier 9 peak in cultivation. If his meridians of true qi were like a river before, they were now an ocean of surging true qi. There was still time left before the grand tournament for him to enforce the pill art. Now that he was a Tier 9 Peak Warrior, other Grade 1 pills were no longer of use to him and only his peerless pills yielded a result. If he wanted to advance to Warrior Spirit state, he needed the Spirit Binding Pill. Breaking through to Spirit Warrior state would be a piece of cake if he could refine the Spirit Binding Pill to peerlessness. Even if peerless Spirit Binding Pills were out of reach, he must at least refine it to a common or superior quality. In a repeated cycle of heating the tripod, refinery, and success, the ingredients for vitality pills were quickly exhausted. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian's stock on pills began to pile up. Grade 2 Spirit Binding Pill, success. Li Lingtian became adept in his techniques after 2 weeks of refining Grade 1 vitality pills. The exquisite technique and unique refining process had led to better quality pills and shorter amounts of time spent on refinery. Finally, when Li Lingtian managed to refine his first tripod of spirit binding pills, he was all smiles. These are superior spirit binding pills. There were 8 superior spirit binding pills. Different from grade 1 pills, refining grade 2 pills was on a whole different level. It required accumulated experience, and despite mastering exquisite techniques, experience was imperative. After a thrill of excitement, Li Lingtian stored the pills as well as the remaining ingredients and pill tripod into his storage sack. He straightened out his clothes before he headed out. Chapter 20. Chapter 20. In Sky Cloud sect, the peripheral and outer sect disciples stuck together. The area where they cultivated and lay their heads may be apart, but the disciples were normally found together. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian left the room and walked towards the square in the outer sect. He had quite a number of inner vitals to exchange for spiritual stones. Warriors were seen cultivating around the square, while some were taking a break in groups of 3s or 4s. The welfare chamber was at the edge of the square, so one had to pass through the square in order to get there. At that moment, Li Lingtian was taking a leisure stroll. Isn't this our senior brother Li? Following the mocking comment, a figure quickly came before Li Lingtian, sized him and gave him a scornful look. Zhang Tian was a genius among the peripheral disciples who had better talent than Li Lingtian, but both of them had achieved Tier 10 peak warrior apprentice state at the same time. Zhang Tian had always wanted to gain the upper hand over Li Lingtian, yet only landed neck to neck with him. When the duo attempted their leap forward to a higher state, Li Lingtian failed while Zhang Tian advanced to warrior state and became an outer sect disciple. The advancement earned him pills and spiritual stones to develop to a Tier 4 warrior in less than a year. After returning from isolated cultivation, Zhang Tian was gratified to receive news that Li Lingtian could never become a warrior. Though, it was a pity that he had yet encountered Li Lingtian to humiliate him, until now. Junior brother Zhang, is this the piece of trash you were talking about? He's indeed a good-for-nothing. Don't a good-for-nothing like you bring shame to Sky Cloud's sect by remaining here? Haven't you given up? Soon, the few disciples who were with Zhang Tian sized Li Lingtian up. As Li Lingtian was a Tier 9 peak warrior, they could not detect his cultivation level, corroborating with the fact that Li Lingtian was a good-for-nothing. Will you die if you don't speak? Li Lingtian glanced back at these warrior disciples with disdain. Then, with a smile on his face, he trod ahead. He did not have time for these Tier 4 and 5 warriors. D***amid, you piece of trash. Who do you think you are? I am a Tier 4 warrior while you're nothing. How dare you act arrogant in front of me? I'll spare your life if you come over here and bow to me 3 times. Taken aback by Li Lingtian's words, Zhang Tian blew a fuse in the presence of smiling faces. I'm in a good mood, so, you annoying flies, get lost. Li Lingtian's smile deepened at sight of Zhang Tian and his group blocking his way. His cold eyes swept past all of them. During this time, many of the disciples in the square looked their way. These peripheral and outer sect disciples hated to miss out on the fun and wanted in on the action. Sigh, if he's a piece of trash, what's considered a genius then? A Tier 6 warrior disciple looked towards Li Lingtian with fear but, too, gloated at the misfortune that was to come for Zhang Tian and his party. He had witnessed Li Lingtian's tactics against a Tier 9 warrior and a warrior spirit in the life or death canyon. These trash had nothing on Li Lingtian. Senior brother Zhang Tian, teach him a lesson. Why don't you take a guess on how long the good-for-nothing can last in battle? Senior brother Zhang Tian, please show mercy. Don't kill him, he's an aristocrat of the empire after all. Countless disciples gathered around in heated discussion. Some even called out to Zhang Tian, for him to teach Li Lingtian a lesson. This was a world of survival of the fittest. Li Lingtian may be a genius before, but now that he was a good-for-nothing, he was held in contempt and became the target to be made fun of. Hee. You good-for-nothing, I'll count to 3. You can either kneel down or go all the way down. Zhang Tian was swelling with pride to hear the disciples addressing him as a senior. With his head held high, he sneered at Li Lingtian. You have 3 seconds to kneel down to me or forever rest on your backs. The taunting eyes of countless disciples caused Li Lingtian's expression to stiffen. In this dog-eat-dog world, only the strongest would be respected. He did not transmigrate all the way here only to live a cowardly life. Whoa! Amid the uproar, the spectating disciples were dumbfounded. For a good-for-nothing to speak that way to a warrior, he must be either out of his mind or had given up on life. 3. Without hesitation, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. 1. Rest eternally then. He swung his arm and drew out the Kailan sword to strike a chilling glow. By the time the chilling glare disappeared, Li Lingtian was walking away without giving the 4 warriors on the ground another glance. Ah! Ah! Ugh! As cries of Zhang Tian's group rang in their ears, the other disciples were gobsmacked. A good-for-nothing had crippled 4 warriors, yet no one saw how Li Lingtian did it. Is this what you call a good-for-nothing? Is he for real? Is there such a thing as a powerful piece of trash? What is a genius then? He only counted 2 numbers before making a move. This isn't fair. Although the disciples in the square had returned to their senses, they were still in shock. They could not help but quiver in fear as they watched Li Lingtian's receding figure. Fortunately for them, they did not drive Li Lingtian up a wall. I make the rules, so I'll do as I please, Li Lingtian replied dully before he walked towards the welfare chamber. The earlier incident may be merely a minor affair to Li Lingtian, but it was a cliffhanger for the many peripheral and outer sect disciples. Not many of them knew about the incidents where Li Lingtian had defeated a few warrior disciples as well as Yang Tianfeng. Now that this had happened in the square, the majority of disciples had first-hand experienced Li Lingtian's capabilities. They were all curious about how a good-for-nothing was able to defeat all odds. Arriving at the welfare chamber, Li Lingtian exchanged all of his inner vitals and materials for spiritual stones. However, instead of Zhu Zicheng, the trade was hosted by a warrior spirit. This was because the items Li Lingtian traded were mostly materials of second-tier demonic beasts, and it did not fall on Zhu Zicheng's jurisdiction. These are from the demonic beasts you killed? Wang Tianzong turned solemn at the content reveal of Li Lingtian's storage sack. He could not have killed these demonic beasts himself. These were mostly inner vitals and materials of second-tier demonic beasts. Only a handful of them belonged to first-tier demonic beasts. Is there a need for senior brother to learn the source of these materials and inner vitals? Li Lingtian asked. Although Wang Tianzong was infuriated by this warrior disciple's confrontation, he did not possess the authority to question the origins of these materials. Darting a cold stare at Li Lingtian, Wang Tianzong began to sort the inner vitals. 21 first-tier inner vitals. 37 second-tier inner vitals. It would be 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. Wang Tianzong made an inventory of the materials before he responded. He then turned his gaze to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian nodded without uttering a word. The inner vital of below first-tier level 5 demonic beast was 10 apiece, while level 5 and above was 100 spiritual stones. It was 200 spiritual stones for the inner vital that ranked less than second-tier level 5, the same principles applied for the other materials. Wang Tianzong did not rip him off. Many warriors were in conversation about the grand tournament when Li Lingtian made his way out of the welfare chamber with 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. The inner sect and outer sect disciples would be taking part in the grand tournament. I heard that the peripheral disciples who had reached the warrior stage will become outer sect disciples in the upcoming tournament. The top 10 outer sect disciples will advance to the inner sect. The real competition is still between the inner sect disciples. The inner sect disciples are fighting to rank high in the sect. The higher the ranking, the better the resources, so of course, it's going to be a fierce competition. It's a shame I'm in the outer sect. I don't have a chance to go into the inner sect. However, the grand tournament this time is for the disciples to fight for a spot to go to Hidden Dragon Isle. The Hidden Dragon Isle is opened once every century, and this is that year. Ah, it's no wonder that the grand tournament is moved ahead by a month. It must be for the Hidden Dragon Isle. It's said that only warriors below the age of 30 can enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Anyone older than 30 would be blasted to smithereens by the structure inside. Yeah, but Sky Cloud's sect only has a quota for 200 disciples. There's only 200 spots, yet there are 150 inner sect warrior spirit geniuses. That leaves the remaining quota up for grabs by other disciples. The faces of many disciples engaged in conversations lit up in excitement. They were itching to try their hand and show off their skills. I see. I must secure a spot to go to the Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian stopped at his tracks after picking up on the disciples' discussion. The Hidden Dragon Isle was the most magical standalone dimension in Eastern Spirit Greenland, and it was opened once every century. The countless treasures and medicine supplies in the isle satisfied the need for ingredients to refine higher-graded pills. However, opportunity and danger came hand in hand. After all, the existence of valuable medicinal supplies attracted dangerous demonic beasts, unknown danger, as well as fellow men that would kill for treasure. Opened once every century, the rich spiritual chi in the isle nourished many valuable medicinal supplies, prompting gruesome demonic beasts and many elite forces to chisel their way in. However, concerned that this resource would be taken over by other forces and for the balance within forces, the warrior leaders from the four great empires in Eastern Spirit Greenland came to an agreement to restrict the headcount to no more than 10,000. In Sky Dragon Empire alone, there were the 4 super forces and many reclusive families. The quota of 10,000 was simply too little. Sky Cloud's sect may be powerful, but it was only an omnipotent existence in Sky Dragon Empire. The sect was still a distance from the super sects in other empires. Hence, they only managed to obtain 200 spots. Warriors who were below the age of 30 could step foot into the Hidden Dragon Isle, whereas those past the age of 30 would be eliminated by the stricture at the dimensional entrance. Warrior King, Warriors Ascendants, and even Warrior Emperors were no exception to this restriction. No one dared to take the risk. The highest tier warrior within the 30 years old was at most a warrior king, yet there were 4th and 5th tier demonic beasts prowling around the isle. They were a dangerous presence in the isle. Chapter 21. Chapter 21. Hee, someone's looking for you, Senior Brother Li. While Li Lingtian was in deep thought, a loud and cheerful voice rang out and interrupted his concentration. Li Lingtian recognized who it was without even having to look at him. It could not have been anyone other than Shweta. Li Lingtian had not encountered Shweta and the other 2 people ever since he had been in wall-facing cliff for reflection. Who's looking for me? There was a puzzled look on Li Lingtian's face when he looked at Shweta and Shengwan Linger before he realized that the girl looked more beautiful and charming now. Junior sister Shengwan is looking for you. She has been dragging me along this entire time to look for you, and we finally found you. Shweta let out a gleeful chuckle as he pointed at Shengwan Linger, who was beside him. Soon after that, he hurriedly stepped away while Shengwan Linger remained far away from him. You! Shengwan Linger's cheeks turned rosy before she glared at Shweta angrily for a while. Junior sister Linger, can I help you? Something faintly stirred in Li Lingtian's heart when he saw how Shengwan Linger was behaving. This little girl was extremely fascinating despite not being as noble or as threatening as Nangong Mingyue. Although Shengwan Linger was not as adorable or gorgeous as Tang Ziming, she was beautiful in a unique and reserved kind of way. No, I was just wondering if Senior Brother Li was going to hunt demonic beasts at the Sky Mountains. Upon noticing that Li Lingtian was gazing at her, Shengwan Linger's heart raced. Moreover, her voice had turned much softer now, like a mosquito's buzz. Nobody else could hear her. Waves of emotion stirred in the girl's heart as she recalled what Li Lingtian had previously done for her at the Life or Death Canyon. Not only had she become extremely curious about this senior brother since then, but she had also felt rather depressed during that period of not seeing Li Lingtian. Hence, she sought out Shweta so they could look for Li Lingtian together. I'm not going to hunt demonic beasts at the Sky Mountains for now. Li Lingtian did not hesitate at all because naturally, his current self would not go to the Sky Mountains to kill the demonic beasts. Instead, he was cultivating several skills so that he could be included in the quota to enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Several days ago, I was greatly rewarded for encountering a surge of beasts at the Sky Mountains, and I managed to exchange them for more than 1,000 spiritual stones. Here, this pill is for you. Shweta took a jade bottle out and passed it to Li Lingtian while Shengwanlinger nodded to gesture that Shweta was right. It was also an indication for Li Lingtian to accept the pill. However, they were surprised when Li Lingtian pushed the jade bottle back at them. He then took 2 pill bottles out of his storage stack and passed them to Shweta and Shengwanlinger. What is this? Shocked, both Shweta and Shengwanlinger stared at Li Lingtian in a stunned manner. They had no idea what he was trying to say. I've managed to refine this pill recently. You guys should take it and use it. Li Lingtian chuckled before he stuffed the jade bottle in Shengwanlinger and Shweta's hands. Did you really refine this pill? You must be joking. Since when were you an apothecary? Shengwanlinger and Shweta were still stunned since everyone knew that you had to be a Tier 1 apothecary to even refine the most basic pills. Li Lingtian's cultivation level was profound despite only being 14 years old, but the two of them still could not believe that he was an apothecary. Why don't you guys take a look? There was a faint smile on Li Lingtian's face when he looked at his 2 friends. The pill that he had refined was definitely not something that an ordinary apothecary could imitate. This is a vitality pill. You've really managed to refine a peerless pill. No, this is a high-quality, peerless pill. It's a peerless vitality pill. Shengwanlinger and Shweta opened the jade bottle in disbelief. When they looked at the pill inside, the pill even had a hint of Li Lingtian's spiritual qi on it, which proved that he had truly refined it. Shweta was instantly stunned because the quality of this pill had exceeded his expectations. Indeed, this pill was several times more superior than the vitality pills that were distributed by the sect. His expression changed greatly when he eventually discovered that this vitality pill was actually a peerless pill. Shweta felt as though he had seen a ghost because a peerless pill was considered a myth throughout the divine martial continent. Since it had never appeared before, nobody would have imagined that they would see it here. Why do you look so stunned? It's just a vitality pill. Li Lingtian laughed. He knew what a peerless pill represented, but he was not aiming for a mere vitality pill. Rather, he wanted a more impressive and higher quality pill. Otherwise, this would be an insult to the ancient pill art. Just a vitality pill? This is a peerless pill. Do you even know what that means? It's a legend throughout the divine martial continent. Shweta looked defeated as he stared silently at Li Lingtian. Was he insane? He had refined a peerless pill, yet he was saying such ridiculous things. The arrogant top-notch apothecaries would be terribly shocked if they had witnessed this. Senior Brother Li, are you actually an apothecary? Are you a great apothecary? Shengwanlinger's face was filled with admiration as she looked at Li Lingtian and asked the question in a gentle voice. Senior Brother Li was a mysterious and unpredictable person. Not only did he have a terrifying cultivation level, but he was also able to refine a peerless pill. What's the big deal about great apothecaries? You can bet your *SS that I'm not one of them. Li Lingtian briefly pouted before he spoke disdainfully. Although he was only an apothecary now, it had barely taken him 1 or 2 months of fumbling around on his own before he could refine his own pills. If all he did was simply rely on the ancient pill art to achieve this result, great apothecaries were not that big of a deal to him. Hee, we won't have to worry about pills anymore. I guess we were too blind to notice that the person right next to us could refine peerless pills all this while. We should just get rid of these useless vitality pills. Shweta got so riled up that he picked up the original vitality pill in which he had gotten in exchange. He was about to fling it outside in an exaggerated manner, but he suddenly placed it back down. I'm going to sell it because this should be worth a few spiritual stones, Shweta reluctantly said as he kept the jade bottle. Hee. As Shengwanlinger saw how Shweta was acting, she giggled playfully. Her enchanting laugh was enough to change the atmosphere completely. Hurry up and cultivate because the grand tournament is about to begin. Li Lingtian immediately walked to his room once he was done speaking. He had to quickly undergo his cultivation so that it would peak in time for the grand tournament. The atmosphere at the sect grew livelier with each passing day because the sect grand tournament was about to begin soon. The peripheral disciples were about to become outer sect disciples, whereas the current outer sect disciples were competing to become inner sect disciples. Meanwhile, the inner sect disciples were competing to rank higher so that they would be included in the quota to enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian was refining pills in his room, cultivating the Flaming Divine Fist, Ice Vitality Divine Fist, Astounding Sword Technique, and Sky Perishing Spear. I've achieved perfection as a Tier 9 warrior. A satisfied look appeared on his face before he glanced outside. He then walked outside energetically and gazed at the sunny morning sky. The radiant sun had illuminated the whole area. While he was walking on the limestone-paved path, Li Lingtian smiled faintly as he looked at the numerous disciples who were happy and excited. All the disciples were heading toward the Sky Cloud Sect Sky Cloud Square, which was almost half a mile wide in terms of length and width. The Sky Cloud Sect used this square to hold their events. The square sat in the middle of the SEC's 4 mountain peaks, which was also the center of the Sky Cloud Sect. At this time, the square was already filled with people within a radius of 1 mile. It was certainly quite amazing that the Sky Cloud sect had more than 10,000 disciples. Li Lingtian briefly scanned the square when he arrived. There were 4 gigantic arenas in the center of the square, and each arena was about 33 feet tall, 66 feet wide, and 66 feet long. Those 4 arenas were used for the disciples' competitions. On the opposite side of the 4 arenas stood a 300 feet tall platform with more than 100 seats. Everyone knew that those seats were reserved for the judges and organizers, as well as for the sect elders. I've heard that numerous top-notch genius senior brothers and sisters are going to participate in this tournament. We're in for a good show. It seems like senior sister Lan Yuyen has already become a Tier 6 warrior spirit powerhouse. I don't think anyone in the inner sect would stand a chance against her. This is probably the first time such a thing has happened. Indeed, senior sister Lan Yuyen is amazing because she's a top-notch genius in the inner sect. However, I've heard that senior brother Dongfang Qingyu has also achieved the Tier 6 warrior spirit. Both of them could end up competing against each other. You've forgotten someone. Who? Senior brother Duanmu Qing. He's achieved the Tier 6 warrior spirit too. Oh, I should have said that I have high hopes for senior brother Duanmu Qing. How ignorant and inexperienced of you. Murong Tianjiao is the strongest. Xiao Tianba is the most impressive one to me. Numerous disciples were having an enthusiastic discussion in the square. The individuals whom they had mentioned were the most skilled geniuses among the inner sect for the past 5 years. They were considered as the most amazing geniuses throughout the entire Eastern Spirit Greenland because they had managed to achieve Tier 5 warrior spirit despite only being 20 years old. Only held once every 5 years, this competition was also a chance for the elite disciples to change their positions. Everyone who had spent the last 5 years honing their skills would wish to achieve instant fame here. Boom, boom, boom. A loud banging noise rang out as the sound of drums echoed into the sky. All of the Sky Cloud sect's disciples had heard it clearly, including the disciples who were deep in the Sky Mountains. Chapter 22. Chapter 22. It's the earth-shattering drum. Numerous disciples stared at a gigantic drum in the sky which had a radius of about 33 feet. This huge drum was crafted with the skin of Tier 5 demonic beasts, and the sound of it could travel across a distance of more than 15 miles. The Sky Cloud sect's disciples would gather at the Sky Cloud Square whenever they heard the sound of this drum, except those who were undergoing isolated cultivation. They were not allowed to come over. Once the drum had sounded 9 times, the entire square became quiet as many disciples continued to rush there. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 30,000 people in the square. At that moment, around 30 powerhouses shot out from the depths of the Sky Cloud sect. Li Lingtian was secretly shaken when he felt their powerful vigor. Every single warrior spirit powerhouse had achieved a Tier 5 warrior spirit. The 30 warrior spirit powerhouses approached the tall platform and stood on top of it. Following that, 12 silhouettes fluttered over before everyone realized that they were all Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouses. Once the Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouses had arrived, 4 elders who were about 50 years old flew over as well. The powerful chi that was emitted from the elders' bodies produced such intense and endless pressure that gave people an oppressed feeling. Warrior King powerhouses. They're really Warrior King powerhouses. Deep down, Li Lingtian was incredibly shocked. Since warrior spirit powerhouses were already extremely strong, he had never imagined that 4 Warrior King powerhouses would appear as well. Warrior Kings were certainly mighty existences. It seemed like the sect had placed a lot of importance on the tournament this time because they had brought out their Warrior King powerhouses. Naturally, this was done to ensure that everything was fair when they were examining the disciples below them. For the sake of the sect, they could not allow any geniuses to be overlooked. I, Long Tian, am the organizer of this tournament. I swear that I will judge this tournament in a fair and impartial manner. Elder Zhang Ling, Elder Qin Tian, Elder Gemu, and Elder Bai Shui will examine and supervise you together as well. Once all the powerhouses on the platform had sat down, a Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouse in the middle stood up and announced loudly. Being a Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouse, his voice echoed throughout the entire square. The tournament will be split into 4 stages. Warriors who are Tier 5 and below will join the first stage, while those who are Tier 6 to Tier 8 will join the second stage. Next, Tier 9 warriors will join the third stage while warrior spirit disciples will join the fourth stage. The top 10 individuals in each stage will then be allowed to join the next stage's tournament to compete to win a spot among the top 100 in the end. An abundance of prizes are in store for the top 100 disciples, and the top 50 disciples at every stage will also be awarded. Registration starts now. Long Tian spoke loudly and clearly as he repeated the tournament rules again. All the disciples were extremely shocked because they had never imagined for the format of the tournament to be different this time. As soon as Long Tian had finished making his announcement, the disciples below started to register themselves at the respective areas, according to their stages. Their cultivation level and status would be checked during registration to prevent Tier 9 warriors from going to lower stages. Otherwise, it would be unfair for the others. Senior Brother Li, we've finally found you. A crisp voice rang out before a sweet aroma instantly drifted over. When Li Lingtian turned around to look, he realized that Shweta, Shengguan Linger, and Qingyun had arrived. Aren't you 3 going to line up for the tournament? Li Lingtian glanced at the trio before he quietly asked. Of course we're going to register for it. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose because we get to compete with all these powerhouses this time. We'd never let such a good opportunity slip away. Shweta spoke loudly. Since he had received Li Lingtian's Peerless Vitality Pill, he had managed to cultivate himself and progress from a Tier 5 peak warrior to a Tier 6 peak perfection. Qingyun had also reached Tier 6 perfection while Shengguan Linger had made the best progress out of all 3 of them. She was previously at Tier 4, but she was now at Tier 5 peak warrior perfection. Since she was already at Tier 5, it was extremely likely that she was in a more advantageous position than Qingyun and Shweta. After all, everything was due to the difference between their tiers. Aren't you going to register? Why are you here? You're supposed to register over there. Shengguan Linger pointed at the area for the disciples in the second stage to register. Obviously, she was unaware that Li Lingtian had already achieved Tier 9 warrior perfection. As such, Li Lingtian was currently standing at the area for the third stage. I'm entering for the third stage of the tournament, so why would I go there? Li Lingtian smiled before he spoke indifferently. He had always gotten along well with his 3 friends. The third stage is for Tier 9 warriors. You? Unless you're at Tier 9. That's impossible. You were only a Tier 3 warrior when I first met you, and only a few months have passed since then. Oh my god, don't you scare me. All 3 of them were completely stunned because Li Lingtian had managed to advance by 6 tiers in less than a year. Was he defying the natural order, or were the rest of them clearly too weak? But it's only Tier 9. Li Lingtian kept saying these ridiculous things with a straight face. Despite that he had advanced by 6 tiers in half a year, he was still acting so calmly. At this point, he was a terrifying threat to the rest of them. He had achieved Tier 9 peak warrior perfection, but he could continue progressing to other states if he had not reached his limit. Furthermore, he did not spend much time cultivating because most of his time was spent on refining pills. The other people looked dejected as this news had certainly traumatized them. "Brother Ling Tian, you're here." While the others were stunned, a sweet voice rang out and Li Ling Tian could instantly feel that numerous stern gazes were fixed on him. However, a sense of helplessness stirred in his heart. This voice was extremely familiar because it belonged to his fiancée, Tang Zimeng, who was an exceptionally beautiful young woman. Numerous disciples in the Sky Cloud sect who had nothing better to do had nicknamed her the unique and talented beauty. She was also known as a goddess throughout the Sky Cloud sect. Many disciples secretly desired her as their partner because she was a goddess in their hearts. Wherever she went, Tang Zimeng would always be accompanied by a large group of followers. Now that Tang Zimeng was with Li Ling Tian, he naturally became the center of attention as well. It was impossible for him to have any peace and quiet. "Goddess, my name is Cheng Yun." "Bang! You're heartless. How could you abandon your friends for a chick? I hope you receive divine punishment." A perverted look appeared on Cheng Yun's face when he saw Tang Zimeng. He wanted to approach the beautiful woman, but somebody kicked him and caused him to fall on the ground painfully just as he was done speaking. Cheng Yun noisily cursed under his breath before he finally returned to his senses and crawled up. "Junior sister, my name is Shweta." Bang! "Dear God, please send down a lightning bolt and burn this pervert to a crisp." A good-natured look appeared on Shweta's face while he disdainfully looked at Cheng Yun, who was on the ground in the distance. As he was about to approach Tang Zimeng, he was sent flying up into the sky and crashed on the ground instead. "Hurry up and register yourselves." Li Ling Tian glared briefly at both of them before he turned around and looked at Tang Zimeng. Although they had not seen each other for only a few months, she looked much prettier and cuter than before. "Senior brother Li, I'm going to register too." Upon noticing Tang Zimeng's unique and gorgeous appearance, Shengwan Linger could not stop the ache from stirring in her heart. Moments later, the young Tang Zimeng turned to Li Ling Tian and piped up. "Brother Li, who is this senior sister?" Tang Zimeng pursed her bright little red lips when she asked that question. She hung on to Li Lingtian's arm as she glanced at Shengwan Linger in the distance. Her actions had instantly attracted numerous people to stare daggers at Li Lingtian. If looks could kill, he would have been murdered at least 10,000 times already. The Sky Cloud sect's disciples had secretly thought of Tang Zimeng as their goddess, but they never had the chance to speak to her on a normal basis. So when they saw her clutching a normal disciple's arm in an intimate manner, they felt an impulse to rush over immediately. "Well, she's my junior sister whom I met some time ago." Li Ling Tian spoke indifferently, ignoring all the murderous gazes that were fixed on him. Then, he started to line up at the third stage with the other Tier 9 disciples. There were more than 10,000 disciples in the Sky Cloud sect, and more than 2,000 of them were Tier 9 disciples. "Oh, you're standing at the wrong place, brother Ling Tian." Tang Zimeng faintly tugged at Li Ling Tian as she spoke gently. Li Ling Tian was at Tier 6 the last time she saw him, so she could not help herself from feeling shocked now. Naturally, she could not believe that Li Ling Tian was at Tier 9. "No, I'm not standing at the wrong place." Li Ling Tian smiled. He could not be happier with his fiancée, Tang Zimeng. All the disciples in the Sky Cloud sect thought of her as their goddess, but she had been pledged to marry Li Ling Tian ever since they were children. If Tang Zimeng had been in his previous life, she would have been a peerless beauty such that all of the other gorgeous women would surely pale in comparison. The Tier 9 warriors are the only ones who can register for the tournament here. "Brother Ling Tian, are you? Could it be that you're a Tier 9 warrior now?" Tang Zimeng's spirited pupils darted around before she looked at Li Ling Tian in disbelief. She would not have dared to believe him even if she was beaten to death. "Yes, you're right. I'm a Tier 9 warrior now." As his cultivation level grew higher, it would be harder for people to tell. Even a warrior spirit powerhouse would fail to determine the true state of his current cultivation level. Tang Zimeng looked dumbfounded, but a delighted look replaced her expression after that. Her heart was filled with excitement as though she was the one who was a Tier 9 warrior. Later, Tang Zimeng constantly remained by Li Lingtian's side, accompanying him as he went to line up and register himself. Nonetheless, she did not want to participate in the tournament. It was impossible for her to compete against the Tier 8 disciples when she had only reached Tier 6 peak. State your cultivation level and your name. Two Tier 5 warrior spirit powerhouses were carrying out the registration for the third stage. They barked those orders indifferently as they saw Li Lingtian walking over. Tier 9 warrior, Li Lingtian. Once he had finished speaking, Li Lingtian extended one hand and stretched it toward the crystal before him. After that, his name, status, cultivation level, and other information appeared there. A 15-year-old Tier 9 warrior. The warrior spirit powerhouse who was responsible for the registration let out a shocked cry. A 15-year-old disciple was a Tier 9 warrior. The powerhouse was also incredibly surprised because the young man was no less a peripheral disciple. All the other genius disciples only managed to become Tier 9 warriors when they were at least 20 years old. Furthermore, they had also relied on countless other resources to climb up. Deep down, the powerhouse was stunned by this young man. "Alright, here's your plaque. Good luck." The warrior spirit powerhouse who was carrying out the registration glanced happily at Li Lingtian before he passed a plaque to him soon after that. Suddenly, all the other disciples around them glanced unconsciously at Li Lingtian a few more times. This was the first time that the person at the registration area had wished a disciple good luck. This meant that he had high hopes for Li Lingtian. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. As Li Lingtian took the plaque and noticed that the number 1888 was written there, a faint smile appeared on his face. At that moment, he was feeling rather nostalgic. In his previous life, numbers were a very big deal to humans because they liked auspicious numbers. 8 was considered a lucky number, but he had never imagined that he would get the number 1888. Li Lingtian left reluctantly while numerous gazes of admiration and envy were fixed on him. Everyone would always pay attention to him when he was with Tang Zimeng. However, he knew that their eyes were on him because they were jealous and in awe. The registration ended quickly after that, with a 2-hour break at noon before the tournament began in the afternoon. Since there were more than 10,000 disciples in the sect, the tournament would drag on for a long time if there were any delays. "Senior brother, I think I've seen Li Lingtian before," one of the Tier 9 warriors said once Li Lingtian had left. There was a pensive look on his face as well. Li Lingtian. I know, he was the one who fought with Yang Xiaotian at the Life or Death Canyon. Another disciple, who was also a Tier 9 warrior, tried very hard to think about it before he finally recalled the Life or Death Canyon. When he thought of that place, he unconsciously looked at Li Lingtian and a shiver stirred in his heart. Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng walked to the edge of the square while they waited for the other disciples' tournaments to start. The young man was not concerned about his own tournament at all because his goal was to be the first in the inner sect so that he could compete against the warrior spirit powerhouses. Furthermore, since his number was 1888, he would be one of the last ones to compete. Tang Zimeng ignored other people's gazes, but when she noticed the downcast look on Li Lingtian's face, her heart was overjoyed. "Brother Lingtian, why the long face? Is something troubling you? Could it be that you're still thinking about the royal princess or that senior sister from just now?" Tang Zimeng spoke in a gentle tone. Both of them had grown up together all along, and they continued to meet each other occasionally once they had joined the sect. However, they had started seeing each other less over these last 2 years. Seeing that Li Lingtian's cultivation had greatly improved the last time they met, she was incredibly happy. Although she was worried about Li Lingtian entering the 10,000 Demons Valley, she understood that good men like him were determined to travel far and make their mark. With this, her longing for Li Lingtian grew more intense during this period of time. She was finally able to meet Li Lingtian at the tournament, but she noticed that he was with Shengguan Linger and the others. Nangong Mingyue is merely the imperial family's royal princess, and she's extremely arrogant and haughty. Li Lingtian was stunned as he realized that Tang Zimeng was envious. He could not be any more satisfied to have made his exceptionally beautiful goddess jealous. The young man shook his head when he thought of Nangong Mingyue. Looking back, he was a huge idiot for abandoning his beautiful fiancée in pursuit of Nangong Mingyue. He had really been one-track-minded. As the tournament progressed quickly, he soon heard someone yelling out the number 1888 from the tall platform, and a youth walked up to the arena. A faint smile appeared on Li Lingtian's face before he hurriedly rose and walked in the direction of the arena. He knew that his match was about to begin soon. "Brother Lingtian, do you feel confident?" Tang Zimeng asked in a concerned manner as she gazed at her fiancé's silhouette. This isn't my ultimate goal. My final goal is to get first place. In fact, I want to get first place in the entire inner sect," Li Lingtian said before his figure moved faster. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared in the sea of people. When he reappeared, he was already at the bottom of the arena, taking one step at a time towards the top. The first in the inner sect? Tang Zimeng mumbled to herself, and deep down, she was filled with shock. Brother Lingtian had changed a lot. He was so different that she almost could not recognize him anymore. Within a few short months, he had managed to progress from a Tier 6 warrior into a Tier 9 warrior. More so, his current aim was to be the first in the inner sect. It doesn't matter if Brother Lingtian has changed because he'll always be the person whom I love the most. When she said that, Tang Zimeng's beautiful little face blushed slightly. After all, she was Li Lingtian's fiancée. "My name is Xiao Tian." The youth who was standing in the arena gave Li Lingtian a fist salute when he noticed that his opponent had arrived. Xiao Tian wanted to exchange pleasantries at first, but seeing that Li Lingtian was taking his time to walk into the area, he was suddenly filled with disdain. Li Lingtian. Although Li Lingtian noticed that the people below the arena were glaring at him scornfully, he continued to smile before he made an indifferent fist salute toward Xiao Tian. "Junior brother Li, this place isn't suitable for you. You should leave. Otherwise, you'll get hurt later." Xiao Tian spoke arrogantly. It was clear that he was belittling Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian was a Tier 9 warrior, but he was probably just a youth who had relied on pills to improve himself. Numerous disciples below the stage had stunned looks on their faces as well. There was nobody younger than Li Lingtian at the third stage of the tournament, and neither had anyone imagined that a 14 or 15-year-old teenager could actually become a Tier 9 master. "Do you have to keep blabbering to stay alive? Where is all this nonsense coming from? You can choose to leave the arena on your own unless you want me to escort you down." Li Lingtian cursed loudly, provoking his opponent. The other party was clearly looking for a fight. Or else, why was he so arrogant despite only being a Tier 9 warrior? "Wow! Ha ha ha!" The audience below the arena burst out into a commotion as numerous disciples who were watching the battle started to laugh loudly. "Good luck, Brother Lingtian." When Tang Zimeng's sweet voice rang out, all the disciples were suddenly stunned. They then turned and fixed their murderous gazes on Li Lingtian. "Since you're courting death, I should just take this opportunity to teach you a lesson. Overlord Fist. Get lost." Xiao Tian was burning with rage on the inside. He was obviously offended after the teenager insulted him. Moreover, when he noticed that the goddess Tang Zimeng was cheering for Li Lingtian, he wanted to show off in front of his dream girl as well. He was hoping that the beautiful girl would pay attention to him too. His true chi circulated throughout his entire body and his Earthpath warrior's soul before he unleashed his Overlord Fist. The entire arena was instantly filled with his explosive chi and his great strength that traveled beyond the land. That's a fancy but impractical move. It may look impressive, but it's useless. Flaming Divine Fist, come forward for me. Li Lingtian glanced at him disdainfully. Xiao Tian's Earthpath warrior's soul and defensive abilities were incredibly powerful, but his attacks were not as strong. Despite only being a Tier 9 defensive type warrior, that man was simply courting death when he attacked Li Lingtian. Without another word, Li Lingtian stepped forward and immediately threw an explosive blow with his fist. He did not circulate his techniques or use any flowery moves, it was just a simple punch, yet this punch was followed by a burning heat that seemed like it would swallow everything up. Boom! The moment an explosive noise echoed, a figure was seen tossed across the sky, drawing a beautiful arc as it went along. Eventually, Xiao Tian collapsed painfully in the arena and he lay there like a dead pig. He's just lying there. Damn, that's a frightening punch. He did it so naturally. It was such a smooth and clean sweep. Has the Amber Tier Inferior Flaming Divine Fist always been so scary? Apparently, it's powerful. He has defeated his opponent so simply and immediately. He's frighteningly strong. When the numerous disciples below the stage saw that Xiao Tian had lost, they were utterly shocked. A teenager had defeated Xiao Tian with such ease, and this was not normal at all. That was such a clean sweep. I never knew that one could almost achieve conception if you cultivated the Flaming Divine Fist to its limit. Warrior King Zhongling's eyes that were semi-shut earlier were now stern. He was originally unconcerned about this ordinary match between two Tier 9 disciples, but he had never imagined that a teenager could use the most inferior Flaming Divine Fist to win against the superior Overlord Fist. Indeed, that was quite impressive. He's only 15 years old, but he has managed to advance his cultivation level and become a Tier 9 warrior while cultivating his skills to the limit as well. You won't find anyone else like him in Sky Cloud's sect. Several Tier 9 warrior Spirit Peak judges were extremely stunned too. It was not a big deal to be a Tier 9 warrior. In fact, it was a perfectly normal matter. However, this particular situation was abnormal because of Li Lingtian's age and his innate talent for cultivating his skills. Not only was it abnormal, but it was terrifying as well. Li Lingtian wins. Long Tian announced this out loud while he unconsciously did a double take at Li Lingtian. To have had praises from several elders, that young man must be an extraordinary person. Good job, brother Lingtian. Tang Zimeng excitedly complimented him while the joyful feeling in her heart grew more intense. That young man was her very own brother Lingtian, her fiancé. Li Lingtian walked out of the arena and stopped beside Tang Zimeng. His face wore a faint smile as he reached his hand out and stroked her beautiful hair. He was glad to be able to share his strength with her. Senior brother Li, your attack was so flawless. Qing Yun and the others walked over and praised him as well. The Flaming Divine Fist was an inferior skill that all the disciples had looked down upon before this, but Li Lingtian had turned this lackluster skill into a mysteriously powerful one. The group then left the previous arena and walked toward the fourth stage arena. As they observed the matches between the warrior spirit powerhouses there, they noticed that the difference between the fourth stage matches and the competitions between the other disciples were worlds apart. On the first day, Li Lingtian entered 3 matches and had successfully joined the top 300, ranking as one of the top 300 disciples among the Tier 9 warriors. When the matches for that day ended, he had to wait until the next day to continue. He had managed to smoothly defeat his opponents with one punch during every match, but unfortunately, this also left many of his opponents feeling defeated. Although there were more than 10,000 disciples in the first and second stages, the matches finished at an incredibly quick pace. It seemed like every match was decided after one blow. Within one day, the matches at all 4 stages were progressing at a similar speed. Xuede had successfully advanced to the next round, and so did Qingyun. However, he looked slightly disheveled. As a Tier 5 Peak Perfection warrior, Shengwan Linger had successfully advanced to the next round as well. Let's go and celebrate because all of us have managed to advance to the next round. Xuede spoke loudly before he glanced at Li Lingtian as an effort to plead with him. Although Li Lingtian was the youngest, everyone gradually revolved around him because of his terrifying power. All right. Tang Zimeng was instantly overjoyed when Li Lingtian nodded. Back then, she used to follow Li Lingtian out frequently to have fun when she had just arrived in the Sky Cloud sect, and she had missed that feeling terribly. Chapter 24. Chapter 24. There were many inns and shops outside of Sky Cloud's sect, but these establishments were operated by the sect's disciples. Outsiders had no means to get into business there. With tens of thousands Sky Cloud sect disciples living in Sky Mountains, needs would certainly have to be to fulfill. Hence, these inns and restaurants became the haven of Sky Cloud sect disciples. Abundance Restaurant was the go-to place in Sky Cloud's sect. Even though the dishes there were the best, the price was beyond affordable, hence regular disciples could not afford to dine at such a place. However, the only ones who could afford a place like this were either genius disciples or highly skilled masters, as they were the only ones who had spiritual stones at their disposal. "Senior sister, please come in. Would it be the private room or main hall?" The lowest expenditure for the private room is 500 spiritual stones, while the main hall is 200 spiritual stones. A Tier 3 warrior disciple greeted the group of people that had arrived at the entrance of Abundance Restaurant. Judging by the way they dressed, the rest did not look like they were rich apart from Tang Zimeng, who carried herself with a goddess-like bearing. So, the disciple only greeted Tang Zimeng and ignored the rest, including Li Lingtian. With eyes that spoke of disdain towards Li Lingtian's group, he announced the price tag on the private room and main hall. 500 spiritual stones? Li Lingtian gasped in surprise. His comical gesture left Shweta and the rest stunned. After all, there was no need for an exaggerated show of emotion. Hee. The hosting disciple who had welcomed the group showed his contempt upon noticing Li Lingtian's reaction and labeled him as another country bumpkin. However, Li Lingtian's following statement threw a curveball at the disciple. 500 spiritual stones? So little? Well, there's no class to that. Fine, we'll make do. Li Lingtian smacked the hosting disciple at the back of his head before darting him a steely gaze. This disciple deserved a spanking for acting like a snob. "Senior brother, senior sister, please allow me to guide you to the private room on the second floor." Although the hosting disciple was dumbstruck, he dared not retaliate the slap in the head and he grew fearful instead. Nevertheless, the customers were kings, so he immediately led all of them up the stairs. The group walked towards the second floor. The second floor also comprised the main hall, but it was surrounded by many private rooms as well. As they had climbed up the stairs and were about to enter a private room, they heard a faint voice. "If it isn't Junior Sister Zimeng, what a pleasant surprise." Following the faint voice, a young man, who was carrying a supposed carefree smile, walked over towards the group. With his eyes only on Tang Zimeng, the young man ignored the others. "Xiao Dongqing, it's you." At the appearance of this young man, Tang Zimeng frowned and her smile hardened. It was obvious that she was familiar with this young man. "Of course, Junior Sister Zimeng, you're here and we came at the right time. Come, it's my treat. I won 3 consecutive rounds today, hee. As Xiao Dongqing only had eyes for Tang Zimeng, he disregarded the rest of the crew. He had come here to celebrate him winning 3 consecutive rounds in the tournament, so he was naturally ecstatic over meeting the goddess of his dreams. "Are you Motherf * King blind?" Li Lingtian struck a palm at him. As a loud blow echoed throughout the second floor, everyone turned their gaze over, dumbstruck by what they saw. A young man had given Xiao Dongqing, a Tier 9 peak warrior genius, a slap in the face. The image had surpassed their imaginations. "You hit me?" Without a chance to dodge, Xiao Dongqing felt a breeze against his face followed by a searing sting. That moment had left him in a complete daze. Picking up an arm to caress his flushed cheek, the young man stared blankly at Li Lingtian. He was still unable to come to grips on what had happened. PFT Shu. No one knew who cracked up first, but suddenly, the other dining warriors burst into laughter too. Since they were here, they must either be highly gifted or skilled, so they were unafraid of stirring a scene. "Yeah, I struck you. Come bite me." Li Lingtian was rendered speechless. This dumb pig must be knocked out of his wits. This young man was playing with fire by wooing his woman in front of him. Die. Meanwhile, Xiao Dongqing had returned to his senses. As his face reddened with rage, his body of true Qi intensified as a display of his Tier 9 peak warrior abilities. The second floor was instantly filled with violent Qi. He was pleased with himself after winning 3 rounds in the third stage today. However, he never thought that he would be slapped in the face by this young man, and in front of a large crowd too. He would never hear the end of it in Sky Cloud's sect if he did not cripple this young man. "You dirty dog, how daring of you to make advances on my woman in front of me? Doesn't this call for a beating?" Li Lingtian ignored Xiao Dongqing's vigor and kept a smile on his face. A Tier 9 warrior sure had the guts to lay a hand on him. What? Tang Zimeng is his woman? It must be a mistake. She's the goddess of our Sky Cloud sect. He's way out of her league. The growing clamor was proof that it was much more shocking than Xiao Dongqing getting slapped. The fact that the goddess of every Sky Cloud sect disciple's dream was his woman was a harder pill to swallow. Although Tang Zimeng was taken aback, she was quickly filled with happiness and her glossy eyes fixated on Li Lingtian. This was the first time Li Lingtian admitted that she was his woman. Even if it were before, Li Lingtian had never proclaimed such a thing even though they were both well aware of their relationship. Moreover, he was in pursuit of Nangong Mingyue for a period of time. Impossible. I challenge you to a duel. Junior sister Zimeng belongs to the strongest. Dismissing the earlier slapping incident from his mind, Xiao Dongqing cried out loud. Since the other warriors on the second floor were upset that their goddess was taken away from them as well, they all banded together. Are you out of your mind? I don't belong to anyone because my heart belongs to brother Lingtian. As though she had to validate Li Lingtian's words, Tang Zimeng leaned towards Li Lingtian and answered in a soft voice. Although it was a whisper, everyone heard it clearly. I don't belong to anyone because my heart belongs to brother Lingtian. This sentence caused many warriors to break down. With pale faces, they could not hide their envy and jealousy. Don't think highly of yourself because you don't have an advantage. You're nothing in the eyes of others. Li Lingtian brought Tang Zimeng into the private room after he said those words. Xuede, Shengwan Linger, and the rest followed suit, leaving behind Xiao Dongqing with an empty look in his face as he lifelessly navigated out of the restaurant. The other warriors clammed up. This time, they had completely lost, or perhaps they never lost since they had never participated. After all, it was all one-sided wishful thinking. However, Li Lingtian's words struck a chord in all the warriors. They were so dumbstruck that they were inattentive to where Li Lingtian's group went. In the private room, the group had forgotten about the earlier episode as they dug in their meals to their heart's content. Tang Zimeng was the happiest of all. She had never experienced happiness like today. With brother Li Lingtian's cultivation on the rise, she, as the fiancée, could not be happier for Li Lingtian. Moreover, she reveled in Li Lingtian's statement that she was his woman. By the time the group left the restaurant, it was late into the night. Xuede and the other two went about their ways while Li Lingtian escorted Tang Zimeng back to her residence before he returned to his room. It was morning the next day when Sky Cloud Square was filled with a multitude of people because today's tournament would be a fierce one. There were several hundred participants remaining in the 4 stages of today's grand tournament. However, the tournament would not conclude on this day as the further the tournament advanced, the longer time the battles would consume. Let me announce yesterday's tournament results. There are 400 disciples remaining in the first stage, 400 disciples in the second stage and third stage, and 200 disciples in the fourth stage. The grand tournament begins now, Long Tian announced. All warrior spirits and 4 warrior kings went to their seats before they began to preside over their respective arenas. Out of Li Lingtian's group, Shengwan Linger went through her rounds the quickest and made it to the top 100. In other words, she could receive a prize if she won one more round. Chen Yun and Xuede were both eliminated, so they gathered around the third stage's arena to root for Li Lingtian. Number 1888, Li Lingtian against number 367, Zhong Yun, Long Tian shouted. Zhong Yun flew up to the arena and stared down at the warriors below. He would enter the top 200 if he bagged one more win, making him a step closer to the top 100. Zhong Yun, please enlighten me. With a bitter smile, Zhongyun turned his gaze to Li Lingtian, who was in the arena. He was well versed in every opponent, but he did not have an inkling on this Li Lingtian. It was as though Li Lingtian had appeared out of thin air. In all 3 rounds yesterday, it was all a clean-cut easy win as Li Lingtian defeated his opponents with a single flaming divine fist. "I'm Li Lingtian. Do you still want to go on with this match?" Similar to yesterday, Li Lingtian threw the young man a question. He was not the least bit interested in a Tier 9 warrior since his eyes were fixed in the 4th stage's arena. Only a warrior spirit was a worthy opponent. Take a guess, between Senior Brother Li and Senior Brother Zhong, who would win? It's hard to say. Senior Brother Li has won 3 consecutive rounds with an Amber Tier Flaming Divine Fist, while Senior Brother Zhong has mastered a mediocre spiritual equipment and Amber Tier Superior Great Compassion Palm. I think Senior Brother Zhong has a greater chance. After weighing in Li Lingtian and Zhongyun's capabilities, the disciples underneath the arena leaned towards Zhongyun for the win. The victory scale was tipping towards Zhongyun with his Amber Tier Superior skill as well as his mediocre spiritual equipment. What an arrogant PR*CK. I'll have you know today that there'll always be someone better than you. Zhongyun pressed forth an arm, invoking a quiver in the air. A powerful force emitted as he spun his arms. Following the movements of his palms, the air trembled violently. That's right. To be able to cultivate Great Compassion Palm to its summit, he is one of his kind in the younger generation of disciples in Sky Cloud sect. A few warrior spirit powerhouses were gratified and satisfied to see the change in the atmosphere. Such a gifted disciple added value in strength to Sky Cloud sect. Great Compassion Palm. At a loud roar, Zhongyun's violent vigor mounted over Li Lingtian after reaching a peak. The disciples who were gathered around the arena immediately moved back. Flaming Divine Fist. Li Lingtian smiled faintly without a care. He knew that an Amber Tier Superior skill cultivated to its summit surpassed the force of an Onyx Tier skill. However, it was still not on par with his Flaming Divine Fist. Circulating the fire dragon's heart within him, Li Lingtian pushed a destructive flaming chi to his knuckles. As one in possession of a flaming sacred body, controlling flames came naturally to him. Rumble. A tyrannical sharp force with endless flames ripped through the air. In the blink of an eye, 2 furious attacks came into blows. Chapter 25. Chapter 25. Following a loud bang, Li Lingtian swayed his body and activated his breeze technique. At the swing of his arm, a silver glow flickered before his body descended on the ground and he stood firmly at the edge of the arena with his back towards Zhongyun. PFT swoosh. Zhongyun leaped to withdraw himself, but before he could secure a footing, a peculiar glow was shot towards him, catching him by surprise. The velocity was so quick, it almost surpassed the naked eye. The moment the destructive attack struck him in the chest, it also crushed his powerful defense. Like a kite with a cut in the string, he was blown away, and he eventually fell off the arena. D****. After falling off the arena, Zhongyun inspected his torn garment and blood-stained chest. Although he did sustain some injuries, he knew that Li Lingtian had shown mercy, else he would be long gone. What a peculiar blade glow! The speed went beyond a warrior. Even a warrior spirit would not be able to demonstrate such velocity. This is the astounding sword technique's first form, Bright Moon in Soft Breeze. Who would have thought he'd be able to cultivate this Bright Moon in Soft Breeze to fruition? Meticulous calculation, exquisite speed, and flawless. No warrior disciples would be able to ward off this move. It's a pity. Zhongyun lost before he had a chance to use his spiritual equipment. The warrior spirits and warrior kings above the arenas nodded their heads in satisfaction as they engaged in a discussion on Li Lingtian's earlier move. This also came as a surprise to the countless disciples beneath the arena. Zhongyun, who they had expected to win, did not even have a chance to demonstrate his spiritual equipment. Li Lingtian wins. Long Tian announced Li Lingtian's victory. He then began to call other disciples up to the arena while spectating other ongoing matches. The tournament wore Long Tian out the most as he had to host matches in 4 arenas without any break. Senior Brother Li, that strike was awesome and powerful. Hello, Senior Brother Li. Senior Brother Li. Li Lingtian moved towards Tang Zimeng after he got down from the arena. While he was on his way down, many warriors greeted Li Lingtian with respect. After all, it was a dog-eat-dog world. Li Lingtian may be young, but his terrifying abilities left everyone tiptoeing around him. At that moment, two Tier 3 warrior spirits were engaged in a fierce battle on the 4th stage's platform. Due to that, disciples beneath the arena had scattered afar as powerful forces ravaged the air. Tier 3 warrior spirit. I won't be able to win if I went for Bright Moon in Soft Breeze, unless I resort to using the Kylan Sword or Sky Perishing Spear. Li Lingtian played out the scenario in his mind, taking the angle of the Tier 3 warrior spirit's opponent as he watched the match happen on the platform. This was because he would sooner or later encounter a Tier 3 warrior spirit, perhaps even a Tier 6 or 7 warrior spirit. As time passed, Li Lingtian was back on the arena for another match, but he and other warriors were dumbstruck by this round. His opponent threw in the towel and admitted defeat. With that, he was now one of the top 100 disciples, and that gained him attention among countless disciples in Sky Cloud sect. In a short span of 2 days, Li Lingtian rose to fame faster than some of the top geniuses. He had triumphed the arena several times with only an amber tier inferior flaming divine fist and struck Zhong Yun out with a single blade in a battle. The morning tournament is over and will continue in the afternoon, Long Tian declared after 2 rounds of matches ended. Following that, the disciples dispersed because there was no point in waiting when it was 2 hours away from the afternoon's matches. Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng left the square and headed deep into the mountains. They used to have fun in these places but had grown apart during the 2 years. Li Lingtian was going to return for rest because he had more rounds happening in the afternoon. There were 3 matches in the afternoon, and if luck was on his side, he would advance to the top 10. The top 10 disciples in the 3rd stage would have the opportunity to venture into higher-level matches. However, he was in a great mood to have the company of a beauty. The duo spent the entire noon strolling in the mountains before they went back to the square. By the time they made it to the square, many disciples had arrived. In the ensuing afternoon, Li Lingtian had entered the top 10 without a hitch. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian did not fight with the other disciples for the ranking in the 10 top spots, and so, he ranked 10th. This was because he wanted to save his strength to compete for Sky Cloud sect spot in the top 100 in tomorrow's competition. The top 10 rankings in the 3rd stage were nothing in comparison, as the inner sect geniuses were the true masters. All elimination rounds are over. Tomorrow marks the beginning of challenge rounds to decide Sky Cloud sect's top 100. After Long Tian announced the instructions given by the 4 warrior kings, the warrior spirit and warrior king powerhouses departed the stage while other disciples went on their way. Brother Lingtian, Meng Meng will support you no matter what you do. I'll be heading off now. Rest well. Tang Zimeng did not want to leave Li Lingtian, but she recalled Li Lingtian's aim to be top of the inner sect. She was aware that tomorrow was a huge day for Li Lingtian. As she did not want Li Lingtian to have any regrets, she had to stay away from disrupting Li Lingtian's rest. Hence, she trod towards her residence with heavy footsteps. Upon returning to his room, Li Lingtian cultivated in peace. He circulated Bright Moon in Soft Breeze, Vast Obscure Extermination, Flaming Divine Fist, and Ice Vitality Divine Fist to bring his skills to full play for the next day. In Sky Cloud sect, there was a restricted area where only warrior king-class elders were allowed in. This was the Divine Cloud Hall. Divine Cloud Hall was established by Sky Cloud sect's founder, warrior ruler Tian Yun. 1. Any important matters involving the sect were discussed by elders who were warrior kings and above in Divine Cloud Hall. On this day, Divine Cloud Hall was brightly lit in the dark of the night. 20 warrior kings were seated in 2 rows in the hall, while an elder in black took a seat in the center. There was an absence of chi from this person, but he emitted an immovable vigor as if a weight was over everyone's head. There were many Tier 6, 7, and even Tier 9 warrior kings present, yet they dared not let out a breath in front of this elder. Ling Tianfeng, Sky Cloud sect's leader, was a Tier 5 warrior ascendant powerhouse. He was a powerhouse of over a century years old, and he wielded the highest authority in Sky Cloud sect. These warrior kings beneath him were core members of Sky Cloud sect. Each one of them was dominant in their own right, yet here they were, gathered together. What do you think of the tournament this time? Ling Tianfeng dully asked. His voice may not be loud, but the vigor of a superior being filled the room. It was as if he reigned over the entire hall. The strength of a sect did not depend on the number of warrior kings or ascendants but the varying gifted disciples. The disciples held the key to the future to carry forward the sect. Without any successors, the sect would meet its fated end. Sect leader, there are indeed many great disciples in this grand tournament. One of the disciples was still a warrior apprentice a year ago but seemed to have reached the Tier 9 peak warrior in perfection in this tournament. He only demonstrated an amber tier inferior flaming divine fist in the few rounds, so I can't tell much about his ability. It's my first inability to read a warrior disciple. Qin Tian stood up and gave Ling Tianfeng a bow. Then, he explained the circumstance surrounding Li Lingtian with a baffled look. History, identity, background. Ling Tianfeng paused before he showed some interest. He then looked at Qin Tian and asked indifferently. It was great for a sect to have a gifted disciple, but loyalty was a must. It would only spell trouble if he were a spy sent by other forces. The son of Sky Dragon Empire's nobleman Ping Bei, the fiancé of the Tang family's granddaughter and an aristocrat to the empire. I suspect that he has something to do with the Fire Dragon Cave incident, or he wouldn't be in possession of such a pure flaming qi. Could it be? Could it be that he has entered the Fire Dragon Cave? Qin Tian disclosed Li Lingtian's identity and background. None of the details escaped their eyes. However, as Li Lingtian's display of his ordinary flaming divine fist's massive force from in the past 2 days came to mind, he immediately formed an association with the Fire Dragon Cave incident. Li Lingtian may think that others were unaware of the Fire Dragon Cave incident, but the cave was an important place in Sky Cloud sect. Sky Cloud sect had eyes on every movement and had long discovered the problem in Fire Dragon Cave. Save that for another day. It's his destiny if it really is him. Check on his warrior soul and attributes then. What about the other disciples? Ling Tianfeng nodded. As the sect leader of a super force, he was not bothered by this. It was alright for the sect to sustain a bit of loss as long as the Sky Cloud sect disciple checked out. The other disciples fared better than in former tournaments. Sky Cloud sect should gain a few warrior kings in less than 10 years. By the looks of it, the few talented disciples may eventually become the backbone of the sect. Qin Tian went through a list of gifted disciples who participated in the last 2 days of the tournament. Those whom he approved of were great talents that had a shot in becoming warrior kings or warrior ascendants. This tournament will decide the direction of our Sky Cloud sect for the next century. You are all aware that the opening of Hidden Dragon Isle is around the corner. The 4 great empires of East Spirit Greenland, the 4 mysterious clans, and countless liberal cultivators will be entering the isle. We, as part of the big 4 sects in Sky Dragon Empire, only hold 200 quotas for our sect. The chances are really slim, so each disciple that has access should be guaranteed an abundance of medicinal ingredients. If we're left with no other choices, anything that is unattainable to our Sky Cloud sect should be unattainable for the other sections. Ling Tianfeng spoke solemnly with expectant eyes. The East Spirit Greenland, 4 great empires, 4 mysterious clans, and countless liberal cultivators were looking forward to the opening of Hidden Dragon Isle. Hence, Sky Cloud sect could not afford to be careless. We understand. We will do our utmost on this matter. The warrior kings replied and saluted with respect. Not only would a powerful sect require great power, but it would also require the strength of cohesiveness. This time, Qin Tian, Zhang Ling, you 4 will be advancing to Hidden Dragon Isle to make sure no threats come to any Sky Cloud sect disciples. You're entrusted with full responsibility for the whole year on Hidden Dragon Isle. Double the prize for the top 3 disciples in the tournament. Ensure that they leave Hidden Dragon Isle safely to the best of your ability. These are the rewards for the top 3, but wait until the tournament is over before opening them. Also, double the benefits for all disciples and nurture the peripheral disciples after the tournament. Sky Cloud's sect cannot wait any longer. Go now. At the swing of Ling Tianfeng's arm, 3 storage sacks appeared. Following his gaze, these storage sacks flew towards Qin Tian as if they were under his control. Ling Tianfeng then disappeared out of the blue. With that, the rest of the warrior kings swiftly left the Divine Cloud Hall and returned to their post. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.